Welcome everyone. This is Michael Gibbs from Go Cloud Architects. Always excited to be here today. I see already we have a Cloud J. Wow, happy late birthday. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to receive this beautiful and nice message from you. Today what we're going to do is I'll begin, we'll kick it off. Maybe we'll tell you about what we do for a minute or two, and then we will answer any kind of questions you have in order. And we love answering questions around here. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michael Gibbs, and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects. And we're based, and everything we do is about helping you get your best cloud computing career. And I've been working in tech now for over 25 years. In fact, I started in 1993, but I don't like to talk about it because it makes me feel old. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. And for the last 2 decades, I've been helping people find their first cloud computing jobs. So always exciting to be doing these things. And what we do is every Wednesday, we try very hard to make sure we can answer any of your questions. There's a lot of confusion going on out there with regards to cloud computing careers. And if you don't know the right career, you could be trying to learn one thing and do something else. So whether you want to be a cloud architect or a solutions architect or a network architect or a cloud network architect, or really any of these careers, there's so many of them and they're so wonderful. We're here for you. So to begin, does anybody have any questions about, how to launch a career, things they need to learn for their career, things that they can do to get promoted in their career, really anything related to starting your cloud computing career or actually improving your cloud computing career? Cloud J, I see you're there. Do you have any questions for me? I also know by the time I speak and the time you'll see, it'll be about 60 seconds, so there's a bit of delay. So anything that I can do to help out. So welcome. I see a lot of you guys are joining. I'm always super happy to see you here. And then Cloud J, we are thrilled to answer your questions. And to let everybody know why this is so important to us and why this is such an important mission, we primarily train cloud architects. And the cloud architect world is often misunderstood. It's mixed with cloud engineering, it's mixed with DevOps, which is a completely different career, a great career, but a different career. There's some people that are recommending SysOps, which is the exact opposite, for example, of actual cloud architect work. So we want to know that we can get you to your goals as fast as possible, whatever that career would be. See, in business, we use a term called opportunity cost. Opportunity cost means if I spend X amount of time here learning one thing, I can't spend that same amount of time learning somewhere else. So with a business, whenever they make an investment decision, they say, $1 million on this asset or service, what could I achieve with this $1 million? What if I invested this $1 million somewhere else? Would I achieve a better rate of return? So that's what we want to do for you. We want to show you how to maximize your time spent studying and learning, maximize your investment. Did you know the average cloud architect earns about $600 a day? So when people are studying every day, for example, where they're learning something that may or may not be necessary for their career, it could be costing them a fortune. So we want to get you to your careers, whatever it be. So please, any questions? And I see the first question from Cloud J. You're interested in security, a wonderful place to be. Cloud J, I think security is exceptional. Why is it exceptional? Because the more stuff that gets placed in the network and the systems, the more security hacks. Guess what? The more things that get placed on the cloud, the more security hacks. The cloud is a much higher value target than the data center. It's not that the cloud providers don't do a great job. They do. They're fantastic. But if I hack into the AWS cloud or the Azure cloud, I can get access to all of their customers. Having said that, if I hack into you, I only get access to your access. So just by cloud itself is going to be higher risk, even if they do everything right on their end. So security is wonderful. Now, Cloud J, I'd love to know more about your background so I can recommend the best thing for you. Generally speaking, if you're interested in security, let me know if you have a security background. Having said that, the AWS security certifications, I don't recommend them at all. So when I look, for example, hi Sanchit and hi Bitsingi, when I look at the AWS Advanced Networking, it's kind of like introduction to junior level networking to me. It's a good introduction, but that's kind of where it's at. And the same thing comes with the AWS Advanced Security. To me, it's like an introduction to security. Now, when you do a CEH, for example, with the practical, you know security. When you do a CISSP, for example, you get security. Even to the degree of the CCSP, you know security, though I like the industry ones a little better. And Siraj, we're going to be recording that session. It'll be on YouTube, and you can watch it after the fact. So I typically recommend industry-related certifications. Now, I don't exactly know what job you desire, Cloud J, and I'm happy to guide you. Do you want to be a cloud security architect? Do you want to be just a cloud architect? Do you want to be a security architect off of the cloud? And I am happy to guide you. I've been a security architect and a network architect for a quarter of a century now, and I love every last minute of it. So if you give me some more information, Cloud J, I'm happy to do so. And I know there's a delay. Um, so good to see you, Basingi, again. And Sanchit, one of my students, always happy to see you. Hello. So Cloud J, if you want to provide some more information, and also while Cloud J is providing some more information, if anybody else has any questions about the career, what to learn, what to study, certain things that are there, I'd love to help in any way I possibly can. Inu Khan, you've been working in data storage for 8 years. Actually, let me go back. Let me finish Cloud J since I was starting with him, and then to Yukon, I will definitely help you know how to transition out of storage. Okay, Cloud J, you're new to the field. You're interested in cloud security, no tech experience. So let me, do you have, and I'm not sure which exact field you actually like in the cloud because you're new to the field. Generally speaking, when someone's new to the field, we have to do the following. If you're interested in cloud security, you need to know the cloud and you need to know security. Now, knowing the cloud is not like a certification exam. The certification exam is, here's S3, here's how to configure it. But the reality is, that doesn't teach you much about anything related to the all-in-all picture. It doesn't teach you how to lock the systems down or how to design them. And the reason it doesn't teach you how to lock the systems down is if you don't know how the systems work, you can't lock them down. So you've got to learn how things work. And then after you learn how things work, and I love security, and I spent a lot of my life there, then you need to understand what vulnerabilities exist in the system and then what you can do about it. So realistically, here's the way I typically train cloud security architects. And of course, you could train with us if you desire, or you can train on your own. Our goal in these discussions is just to give you the best guidance we can. So, how do we make these recommendations? If someone's new like you, and let's say they wanted to become a cloud security architect, and I get a lot of these, I typically focus on architecture careers. So the first thing I would do is teach people the network and the data center. And why does everybody, I always go back to the old tech to teach the new tech? Well, a cloud is nothing more than a network and a data center that's been virtualized, literally nothing different. So basically you take your data center, for example, you install a thin layer of software called the control plane, and then your servers and your storage functions as the data plane. So everything that you need to know is about the network and the data center. So let's talk about some of these networking things to teach you how to get there. You must learn routers and switches. Why? Routers do packet filtering, for example, like access control lists. Routers will do NAT, which can have an element of security. Routers and switches can set up QoS policies, which can minimize the damage of a worm and therefore prioritize your important traffic. Switches can, for example, have 802.1x authentication, which basically means you plug in your computer and it won't even receive an IP address unless it's the MAC address is belonging on the network. On the network side, you can limit routing information to make sure that people can't reach things. If you don't have a route to it, you can't reach it long before we even get to things like firewalls and IAM. So these kind of things become critically important. Then you really need to understand, what are servers, what are virtual machines, what are containers, how do they work, when do you use them? You need to understand firewalls in depth, specifically stateful packet inspection and how these things work. You need to understand DMZ type architectures. All this stuff has network and data center stuff. After that, you need to understand things like Microsoft Active Directory for IAM, big part of it. Understand different types of encryption and hashing algorithms, such as MD5, such as AES 256. And then we get to the security components, which is related to your security policy, what things people do. And all this stuff can be found in a good security training. But then you also need to know the cloud. So because you're learning the data center and the network, and ideally, I recommend all my students build the cloud. I recommend you build the cloud to set up your security on the cloud and test it too. So typically speaking, the path for something like this is the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, and a CEH with a practical exam, or a CISSP if you've got some experience, or anything that looks like security experience in the past, which doesn't sound like you have, or the CCSP, the Certified Cloud Security Professional. These are kind of one of those things that we highly recommend for someone in your choice. So CloudJ, that's typically the path that we would typically recommend. Build some Linux firewalls with IP tables, build some OpenSSH VPN containers, learn these kind of things, and you will have an unbelievable cloud computing career, especially in compute security if that's your desire. CloudJ, I hope I had answered your question. If you've got further subsequent questions to that, I promise you I will answer them. But the more information I have, the more information I can give. So now, Mr. P, welcome. Well, Mr. P, we're going to get to you in a minute. I got to tell you, the performance that I heard you do the other day while driving a truck at the same time was extraordinary. But let me answer Inu Khan's question first, and then I'm going to come back to you. And then, hi Ashraf, so good to see you. So, Inu, you've been working in the data storage for the past 8 years. Good. That's infrastructure background. Excellent. What is the learning roadmap? Is it difficult to switch to the domain? No. Switching from one domain to another domain in UConn is easy. What if I told you I used to practice internal medicine prior to moving into tech? And I did. So I take people out of healthcare into tech. I take people out of communications things into tech. I take people out of business roles and move them into cloud architecture roles all the time. So coming from tech, specifically infrastructure like storage, you are strategically advantaged. Now the question becomes is, what type of cloud computing job do you want? Are you interested in cloud engineering, because that's one skill set, cloud architecture, which is a different skill set, cloud infrastructure architecture, which is a slightly different skill set, which is kind of more where I play with. Inu Khan, if you let me know exactly, I can give you the perfect roadmap, but I need to know your ultimate destination career and exactly what your starting point is. So tell me what you've done with storage. Are you working with fiber channel? Are you working with designing storage area networks, or are you configuring them? If you give me a little bit more about you, Inu Khan, I would look forward to answering your questions. So I will ask you for those questions, and then as soon as I see an answer back, I will definitely give you a roadmap. While I wait for your answer, let me go to Mr. P. Mr. P, I've never seen someone drive a tractor trailer and be able to design an architecture the way you did the other day at the same time. Highly impressive. But obviously, as long as you it's in a safe manner, which I know you are because you're highly responsible and you're on the road all the time. But unbelievable performance and capabilities with regards to that. So if you're looking for security, is the CCNA enough? Well, the CCNA is a very good intro to networking certification, which we absolutely love. It's about 10 times better than the AWS Advanced Networking, and I think it is absolutely terrific. So the CCNP is another really great one to teach networking, and there is a substantial amount of security on the network. Now, when I want to focus on security, I tend to like to get a security certification, like a CISSP or a CEH. And when we do this, Mr. P, what our goal is as follows. We are trying to get the biggest certifications we possibly can in the field. And what I mean by the biggest, it's not exactly like one certification is necessarily so much better than the other. But see, in economics, you know how you have these supply and demand curves, which basically says the greater the supply, the lower the price, and the greater the demand, the higher the price. These are typical economics curves. So what we do when we kind of look at security certifications is we look at what is most in demand. What are we seeing, for example, on all these job applications? What are the recruiters telling us? What are the hiring managers telling us? And what has the highest pay? Now, when you start looking at what has the highest pay, you start literally coming into the supply and demand curves. What'll happen in life and in business is if, for example, something goes fine and it becomes really good, you'll find people typically move into it. And as the supply of people that are capable of doing it, if the demand does not increase, the salaries will level off, and at some point you get a lot of people, there's a surplus, the salaries will even decline some. Now, with cloud computing, it's kind of different. Cloud computing, I don't feel will be this way because it's such a disruptive technology. And realistically speaking, less than 20% of the people that actually exist are even using the cloud properly. So we've got a lot of room to grow in the cloud, probably for decades. And the cloud is truly a disruptive transformational technology. The speed and the agility is unbelievable. So I think you're in a good spot. But for security, I would probably prefer you to have like a CISSP or a CEH or maybe even a CCSP. I think that would give you the edge there, Mr. P, to take your good certified solution architect professional as well as your good knowledge, business acumen, communication skills, executive presence, all those things, finishing off with some deep security knowledge, and you'll be in a really great shape. So that would be my recommendation for you, Mr. P. And I know that I'll be coaching you, and I know along the way that's kind of the way I'm going to be kind of coaching you to do that deep security thing, and in addition to that, we're going to have the deep cloud thing, and I've already seen amazing things from you, so I'm super excited to see it. So, Mr. P, if you have more questions, please put them in the chat box. I love answering them. And in the meantime, I'm going to go to InUcon. So it sounds like, so InUcon, you're looking to go to the cloud. You've got work with SAN, NAS, iSCSI. Okay, really great. So InUcon, here's my recommendation. Do you want to be an engineer on the cloud, though, or do you want to be an architect? So we predominantly deal with architects. So I'm going to talk about how to do it to become an architect in InUcon. And if you want to learn how to do this to be an engineer, I'll give you that next. That it's a very different skill set to be a cloud engineer and an architect. If you wanted to go from a storage background to the cloud, first, we love people with a storage background. Storage is infrastructure. So let's really think about what is the cloud. It's routers, it's switches, it's firewalls, it's VPN concentrators, it's load balancers, it's servers, it's containers, and and you've got storage. So basically, compute and storage. That's your environment. So when you know basically the storage, you're advantaged there. So, for example, as an architect, it's very common to talk to people about their storage for a week straight, which is why I say knowing its S3 and how to configure it is not really a relevant skill set for the cloud architect. You've got to be able to talk to people about their object storage and what they're doing with that metadata associated and how they're integrated into big data environments. So you are going to be in great shape. And you said cloud architect, good. Cloud architects do not code in InUcon. It is not a cloud architect skill. A cloud architect is a systems designer, meaning we meet with a client, we ask the great questions, business, legal, technical, regulatory. Then after we do that, we're going to baseline the current systems. Now we may be baselining the systems ourselves if it's a small account, or if it's a big account, we're going to have a team of cloud engineers that we're going to bring with us. We're going to interact with the customer, we're going to get the requirements, we're going to do the system design, and we're probably going to bring a team of cloud engineers to baseline the systems. Because when you've got 100,000 servers and you got to discover it, or 20,000 subnets, you're going to need a team. So I meet with the executives, I then meet with the engineering team as well. I take in all their business, legal, technical, regulatory requirements. We do an evaluation of the current systems, and then as an architect, we design them in InUcon. And then after we design it, that's it. We are done. We don't configure the devices. We don't play with the management console. We don't use the CLI. We don't use the API. We don't manage things after the fact like sysops. We're not doing software release like DevOps people. We are designing a system and turning it over to somebody else. So, knowing that, coding will never be required in a true cloud architect job or a true solution architect job, nor will configuring be. So, what is the roadmap for you? Coming from what sounds like an engineering world of storage area networks, which is good experience. First and foremost, you have to take that experience from the networking world and then prepare to be customer facing. What does that mean? Customer facing means executive presence, training emotional intelligence, business communication skills, ROI modeling, knowing what the CEO needs versus the CIO versus the CFO versus the CTO, knowing how to communicate differently to a functional personality type versus a, what do you call it, versus an intuitive personality type versus an analytical personality type, being able to pick out the visual, auditory, and kinesthetics in the room, be able to speak to them, and these are just the bit, and then being able to lead a team of people that are going to deploy your project. Now that's just the non-technical side. On the technical side, what we need to teach you is we don't need to teach you storage because you've got that, and that is a huge advantage. You're still going to need to learn networking, and you're still going to need to learn security, and you're still going to need to learn compute, which you may know already. If you're working at Fiber Channel, you may get the concept of servers and cores and DRAM, but you're going to have to understand that architecture real well. Then you're going to have to understand virtualization real well because the cloud is everything virtualized. Then you're going to have to understand containers really well, obviously firewalls, IDS, IPS systems. So I think realistically speaking, that's what I would recommend you do. That's the pathway. Now, if you're interested, we have a complete training program that does that. And if you want to know exactly the steps to take to get your first cloud architect job, we have a free webinar tomorrow. We're going to do that. And Chris from my team has actually listed our program if you're interested in learning about our program. And I will put our phone number if you're curious. You can call our office and ask how we would work with you, and you can actually ask questions live. So that's a possibility for you too as well. But and Yukon, I hope I answered your question completely. If you've got further or subsequent questions, I promise to answer them, and I would be thrilled to do so. You know, it's funny in Yukon, some companies really do want a lot of experience and others do not. I can tell you that I had somebody recently join my program about a few weeks ago, and he just accepted a pretty significant cloud architect position, and he wasn't working as a cloud architect at all. He had been working in the application world. And I have several students that have had no background whatsoever that I've gotten cloud architect jobs in the last month or so. So I've gotten my first job when I didn't have experience, but the key to experience is getting knowledge. So as employers, when we truly deal with the hiring manager, I don't care what you've done for the last quarter of a century of your life. It's irrelevant to me. What I care about is, can you do the job? And are you energetic? Are you enthusiastic? Are you passionate? Can I trust you? Is your attitude good? Will you work in a team? This is what hiring managers care about. Now, HR people are going to put all kinds of crazy things down on a resume, and they have to from an HR perspective. It's necessary, and the reason it's so necessary is as follows. HR will get 5,000 applications for a single job. So how does HR weed through the applications? They put roadblocks up. 10 Olympic gold medals, 50 years of experience. HR is trying to select the best of the bunch because they get too many applications, so they try and intentionally put up things, obstacles to see who's going to go through. Now, you know what? Most of the time we try and use an executive recruiter and we send our people directly to the hiring manager and bypass HR in the first place because we get somebody in the front of the hiring manager and the person knows what they're doing and they're competent, they get hired. So we worry much less about job descriptions and much more about what hiring managers tell us, much more about our outcomes, much more about what we hear from the massive number of recruiters in our network and hiring managers in our network. That's where we focus on things. We don't really focus on, job descriptions or word of mouth. We focus on outcomes. I hope I answered your question there. And I'm happy to go dive further into it for you. Mr. P, the industry is leaning towards certain things, but when you look at CIO magazine, which is what I read, why do I read CIO magazine, Mr. P, when I try and determine which certifications? You know who does the hiring decisions in an organization? You know who determines what's needed? Realistically speaking, it's the Chief Information Officer. So we actually made a video very recently, and I'll release it on how we pick certifications. And in that video, we actually showed the certification metrics from what was being posted in CIO magazine. We also look at what Tech Systems, one of the largest tech recruiters in the country, puts out there. And right up there in the top 5 were CEH, CISSP, and CCSP. All the other ones weren't really in there. So I do love that offensive security professional. I love it. It is fantastic. But the CEH was practical, seems to be the bigger one. So I hope I answers that question. Now, John Oho, I see, has a question here. You have a question on behalf of someone interested in the cloud that has a medical background. Well, I know a lot about that. Little Power, BI, and Analytics with Excel. How can she transition into what areas? John, she can transition into anything she wants. Um, I was practicing internal medicine. I woke up one day, and actually, I didn't wake up one day. Here's what happened. I was practicing internal medicine. I had a house full of computers and routers and switches because I loved it so much. My wife said to me, Mike, this was in 1996 or something like that. She said, Mike, you spent $30,000 this year on routers and switches and tech. Maybe you should actually make this your actual career. And she did, and I have been. So I went straight from practicing internal medicine straight into being a senior network engineer. And I got to tell you, I loved it. Now, I will occasionally practice medicine as a nurse practitioner as a volunteer because I enjoy doing it as a volunteer. I don't have as much time as I used to, but I used to enjoy doing it as a volunteer. But I like doing tech. So if somebody's coming from healthcare, they already have a lot of the assets that are critical for this field. See, in healthcare, we're dealing with humans. Now, here's the thing about dealing with humans, John Oho. We have to ask questions in healthcare. Humans have emotion. Humans get anxious. Humans have bad moods. And for anybody that's working in a healthcare environment, they're dealing with people that are constantly cranky. The nurses are basically abused. They're abused by patients, family members, even the physicians themselves. And healthcare people could work 20 hours a day, long hours, low pay. So anybody in healthcare knows what it's like to really walk into a room and try and calm people's emotions down. Try to bring out the best in others. Try to improve the environment. So when people are doing things like that in healthcare, it breeds a level of emotional intelligence. It breeds a level of empathy. It breeds a level of enthusiasm. And healthcare people, because they have that, are so easy to actually transition into the cloud. With healthcare people, for the most part, we have to teach the following. The tech piece, which is easy, and we have to teach, the executive communication piece, but we typically don't have to teach the emotional intelligence piece, and that is one of the most important ones. So I'd say with healthcare people, it's probably the easiest, John, because we only need to teach the tech and the business acumen and the leadership. So that's why when I said when I came from medicine, it made sense. So let's look at the job, for example, of a doctor, and then let's look at the job of an architect. So as a doctor, patient comes in and they say, my back hurts. I say, okay, I heard your back hurts. What makes your back better? What makes your back worse? Then I put my hands on someone. I do a physical exam. Then I make a diagnosis and prescribe a medication. What do I do as an architect? Guess what? I meet with the client. I ask, tell me about your systems, what's going on, your business goals, what's going on. Then I evaluate them the same way I evaluated my back pain patient by doing an exam of their system. And then in medicine, I make a diagnosis. In architecture, I generate a hypothesis. And then in medicine, I prescribe a prescription. And in architecture, I build a plan called an architecture. So either way, I'm meeting with a client, I'm assessing things, I'm making either an assessment or a hypothesis, and then I'm generating a plan. One plan's a prescription, one plan's an architecture. So it's really the same thing. So John, great things. If she comes from doing some words with business and analytics, that's even better. Now she's familiar with some BI tools, which also means she can understand, what we're trying to use all this big tech for in the first place. We're not just collecting data and aggregating it for no reason. We're doing it to do something with the data and make better business decisions. So, great place to come from. I'm happy to work with her, John. And if she's got any questions, or your friend has, or he has any questions, please feel free. I'm happy to speak to them. Praveen, so happy to see you here. Mr. P, and adopting a purple team. Perfect. Great, 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 great. So the next question, and I see you're there, Hyphus 6M11. I'm going to get to you very soon. The next question is from Adayita. Hi, sir. You're in your 5th semester undergraduate. Wonderful. Majoring in computer science and want to start off cloud computing, so you're interested in cloud architect. I will tell you this. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I actually have about a half a dozen people in their junior and senior year of college right now, and boy, how wonderful is that? So when you're in school, they're teaching you like the school stuff, and then when you get out, You have to learn the real stuff. And I love schools and I love universities. They teach us how to learn. They teach us the structure. They teach us, a processing and a procedure. So, I love education. I've got 2 master's degrees myself. But there's a difference between what we're taught in school and what we actually do. And I think it's good to have both sets of knowledge. I really do. Tremendously beneficial. So I've worked with people while they're actually in college. And it's really exciting when you work with someone in college. And for example, one of my most successful people was a young guy, about, I don't know, probably 10 years ago, and he was in high school at the time, and he came to me in the gym and he's like, "Hey, could you explain to me what you actually do, because everybody knows you as the smart computer guy." And I'm like, "Well, here's what I've always done. I learned Cisco. After I learned Cisco, I learned the network." And somehow this kid says to me, "Could you train me?" And like many others, I said, "Sure." He seemed a little lost. I put him through some mental toughness training to see if he was willing to do the work to be a student, and he did. So after I had given him a task and watched that he completed the task, a nearly impossible task, I decided to train him. By the end of high school, he was a CCNA. In between college semesters, he was a CCNP. By the time he graduated college, he had a really great job for one of the world's 10 largest internet service providers. A year later, he was at one of the largest networking vendors in the world. And a year later, he was had a senior position in this organization. So start young, start early. So if you're interested in cloud computing, now's your chance. Learn about the network. Get a CCNA, for example. Learn about the cloud. Start learning about the data center. Learn about storage. Learn about firewalls. Learn about virtualization. Learn about containers. And get really great knowledge. Do some labs when you have a chance. Build some Linux computers. Build some web servers. Build some firewalls. Build some VPN concentrators. Heck, build a load balancer on your own. Then play with some Active Directory. Get EVENG, and this afternoon we are going to have a really fun networking party. I am going to be here, for example, with my good friend Inram Takur, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the kind of network we designed last week, and we're going to actually build it on Cisco routers. So get some great networking training, and we're going to do deep networking training today for free, and a lot more is coming. So get some networking training. Get some security training. Make sure by the time you're out of college, you've passed the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. And since you've got time, heck, while you're at it, pass the Google Professional Cloud Architect. So you'll have a networking certification. You'll have 2 professional architect certifications. Don't get all these other things if you want to be an architect. Stay straight on this architecture focus. While you're in school, if you have the opportunity to take some electives, take some effective speaking classes or some public speaking classes. If you have that opportunity, join Toastmasters while you're in college. Get used to presenting in front of big people and large audience. When you get done school, you will be so advantaged. You will have the capabilities of someone that's been in the field for 15 years. Then do the kind of things we recommend about how to get your first tech job, like we'll talk about on our free webinar tomorrow. Get yourself interviewed with that hiring manager. When that hiring manager asks you a question, you're going to know it because you've had 3 years of preparation. You wow them with how much depth of knowledge you have. All of a sudden, they forget that you're 20 or 22. They give you the job of a 30-year-old, and you're the fireball with all the energy that's going to go in there and take the world by storm, and your career is going to skyrocket. So that's my recommendation. I've worked with kids, and I mean kids, I mean people under 25 in college, and my God, it is unbelievable when you start training right, the things that will happen to you in your career. I had a martial arts instructor. Well, I've had a lot of martial arts instructor, but I had one that was really, really good. And on the first day, I went to train with him, and I was invited as part of a large delegation for this training process. It was in another country, and it was exceptional training. On the first day, he says, "I'm going to make some recommendations for martial arts, but they apply to your life." He said, "I recommend you eat right, think right, and train right." He said, "If you do all these things, you will never have a problem in your life." And then I thought about it, and I said, if you eat right, you'll be healthy. If you think right, you'll be able to diffuse most situations and solve most problems. And if you train right, no matter how bad the situation gets, because sometimes things don't go your way, you will always be prepared. So when I talk about building cloud computing careers, I like to say eat right, think right, and train right. I hope I answered your question. If you got further questions, I would love to get deeper into those answers. So great job, Adia, working on this while you're in school. So, and if you've got more, please ask those questions. So, it's really interesting. Typically speaking, when we're dealing with people that are a little older, they get worried about moving into these architecture roles. So I also want to give you the opposite side of the equation. Because when you're being an architect, you're going to be in front of the CEOs, you're going to be in front of the CIOs, and you're going to be making decisions. Generally speaking, people in their 40s and 50s are easier hires than someone, say, in their 20s. And the reason is when you look at someone and they've got a little bit of gray hair, you kind of assume they've had things, they've had some experiences, they're a little safer. Is that true? I don't know. I will tell you that at different ages of our life, we are better at different things. For example, when you're young, like you are, and in school, guess what? We think and learn so much faster. And because of that, if you pick these things up now, by the time you're done school, you can be really great. Probably as good as someone that's got 10 years experience. By comparison, those of us that are older, we often learn a little slower. I just don't process information the speed that I did when I was 22. I don't read 1,000 pages a day every day anymore. I did. It was nothing. I did it every day for a year, for a long time. And I could remember it all. Now, I read every day, a couple books per week. Or I listen to audiobooks, a couple books per week. But having said that, realistically speaking, there's a wisdom that comes along with experience that I know that, oh, this new technology, this sounds really cool. Wait, let the market test it before I deployed it. See, in my 20s, I wanted the newest and best technology. And why did I want the newest and best technology? I was a techie. I loved it. It was cool. So, I mean, I do love that, and I always will tell you that things like this are fantastic. But at the same time, I guess what I also want you to communicate is at each stage of your life, you have a different thing. So if you're young, what you want to do is you want to show people your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion, your thirst for life and knowledge, and that's going to work. If you're like me and you're a little older, you want to show your wisdom. Show that the experiences you've had in either one career or another career make you better prepared for this career. When you do this, you will always be in a position to leverage to your strengths. So we all have different levels of strengths at different stages in our lives. So guess what? Don't worry about it by any stretch of the imagination. Look how to use your strengths. Play to your strengths. When you play to your strengths, you will always, always, always be in a great position. I hope I answered your question there. Okay, Hypha's 6M11. As someone who has no background in IT, you have just passed the Cloud Architect certification but can't even land an interview. Okay, so Hypha's 6M11. Let me answer that with truthful honesty. Whatever is on these certification exams really has no relevancy at all to the job of the Cloud Architect. And that's why these certifications themselves, by themselves, without experience, aren't meaningful. In fact, they're almost meaningless. See, let me explain to you, in case you weren't in the beginning, what's the problem with certifications. The certification is S3 and how to configure it, or an EC2 instance and how to configure it. And I got to tell you, that's why I started this company, because I had previously bought for a young man the 3 best-selling courses. And I told the kid that I was going to be coaching, I said on every Friday I'll spend 2 to 4 hours with you. But I'd like you to watch these things. So I bought him the 3 best-selling courses from a single continent, and the person called me back after 2 days and he said, Mike, I set up an EC2 instance and an S3 bucket. What are they? And I was like, what do you mean, what are they? You just watched 3 training companies. I'm sure you understand how object storage works, what it does with the metadata, how it breaks things down, how it's used, what happens when new files are modified. And he said, what are you talking about? And then I asked, how data is broken down into objects and objects with metadata. And he said, what are you really referring to? So I said, okay, let me watch the videos. And I was terrified. I saw all these videos that were about S3, how to configure it, EC2, how to configure it. And guess what? You will never do any of that as a cloud architect. As a cloud architect, it's about meeting with that client, asking the right questions, baselining their systems, and designing something. There's no programming, there's no configuration, and guess what? It's not even about the name of the service. It's, let's say this. Customer has 100,000 servers that all have 16 cores and 4 terabytes of DRAM, or a terabyte of DRAM, for example. Guess what you need to do in the cloud? Replace that stuff. The customer's got 20,000 subnets and they're networked to 10,000 remote locations. What do you need to do on the cloud? Figure out how to design it. But you're not going to build it, you're going to design it. So I can give you a couple options, HiFuzz 6M11. Option one is we train people to teach them how to be an architect. And I will tell you that when someone has an AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, they have about 10% of the knowledge necessary for a cloud architect, solution architect. I can turn someone new into a certified solution architect professional in 2 weeks if I desired, but they still wouldn't be hireable. I could teach that in 12 hours, no big deal, but that's not enough to get hired. What needs to be hired? You must know that network like the back of your hand. You must understand how would you design your IP addressing scheme. You must understand routing. You must understand NAT, and NAT is not just to connect to the internet. It's to deal with overlapping IP addresses. You must understand mergers and acquisitions and what has to happen in the network. You must understand VLANs, 802.1q tagging, Q and Q tagging, Ethernet over MPLS, QoS policies, 802.1x, private VLANs as well. You must understand the IPsec protocol. You must understand all of this, and that's just touching the network. Now, you've got to understand servers, how they work, cores, DRAM, server architecture, memory channels. And then when you're done that, you've got to understand virtualization. What goes on with the hypervisors? How do the hypervisors work? And then after that, you need to understand container architecture. And then you've got to learn firewalls. You've got to learn network-based IDS, IPS systems. You've got to learn authentication, AAA, authentication, authorization, accounting. You've got to get some experience with Microsoft Active Directory. And guess what? You don't even have to have a job to do any of this. If you're with us, our students go through an extensive 250 to 350 hour training session. In fact, we do live training twice a week for 3 hours. And on the live training, it's all architecture based. And if you want to see what this is like or learn architecture things, you can join our program. Or on Tuesday, we have a completely free Cloud Architect Challenge. And Chris from my team will pop that Cloud Architect Challenge so you'll know what the job is. And then you'll know the skills necessary for the job. So the skills are all those tech pieces, how they work. So I recommend you build it all. Buy a server, 16 cores, minimum 128 gigs of RAM, 3.5 terabyte SSD drives in a RAID 0 array, or one NVMe drive plugged into a PCIe slot, because you need that speed and performance. Then set it up with VMware ESXi, then build some Docker containers, build an OpenSSH firewall, build an IP tables or a UFW firewall, set up NFS shares. Our students do all this. When you're done that, set up Sandbash shares, build the Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP stack. This is all the systems. Then when you're done those things, set up a Microsoft Active Directory service. And you know what's next? What my students do? They build a cloud. You can't design systems for clouds. You can't be advising people on clouds unless you know the cloud. It's not the name of the services and how to configure them. They're not even relevant skill sets for an architect. But you must know the cloud. So we have our students all build a cloud. That's right, you heard me. They build a cloud. They take a server. They install Linux on the server. They install the control plane, the OpenStack Ansible control plane. They set up their storage. They set up their compute. They set up their containers, the databases that run everything. Then they built the cloud. And after you built the cloud, let me tell you, everything on the cloud is just silly easy. And that's why I do this. I got to tell you, in my house, I've got 7, 24, or 28 core servers, depending upon the room. And literally speaking, it's just a sandbox to play games. I have a cloud running in my house. I've got virtualized servers running in my house. I've got firewalls, DMZs everywhere. And I'm just teaching cloud architect work. So, when I was studying to learn these things years ago, that's how much time you spend. You got to learn how to do it. If you're our students, you can build it all on our servers. Our program is cheaper than buying a server. Having said all of that, if you're not with us, you've got to get this kind of experience. You need something to put on your resume that employers are going to care about. Our students put down Go Cloud Architects and they list everything they have. If you're not with us, that's okay. Create a research and development section in there and put all these things that you did on there. So when someone else says, I set up an EC2 instance, you can show, I built a cloud. Who are you going to hire as the hiring manager? The person that knows how to build a cloud from scratch and then federate that cloud to an Active Directory server they built themselves? Or a person, for example, that just configured an EC2 instance? I personally use an 8-year-old little girl, my friend's daughter, to configure my EC2 instance. She's the cutest little thing I've ever seen. She goes to that management console, she clicks, 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 and she says EC2. And when I see her do it, it just makes me smile. So that's what I do. Realize if I use an 8-year-old to do this, nobody's going to pay you a large salary to do this. So people pay cloud architects and solution architects for end-to-end design, not configuration. So please understand that. That is the difference between an architect. Now, before I get to the next question, we architects are system designers. We do nothing other than design. Speak with customers, present to customers, evaluate things, evaluate the business, and design things to improve business. When we're done designing it, we turn into a cloud engineer. A cloud engineer is going to build it. So the cloud engineer needs more depth on the names of these services, how to configure them. They need to know everything about these services, but they're focused on the smaller picture with much more details. As architects, we're focused on the big picture. So these engineers need to know how to build it. And yes, engineers will need to code while architects will not. Engineers will need scripting while architects will not. Engineers might need to learn CloudFormation and Terraform while cloud architects will not. It's not part of our world. Cloud engineers are very important. And after the cloud engineers build them, they're going to turn it over to the sysops professionals. These are the maintenance people of tech, the operations people of tech. So architect design, engineer build, operations, and maintenance sysops. Now there's this other tech career called DevOps, and it's awesome, which is automating software release cycles, but not architecture. So if you want to be an architect, focus on architecture. The solution architect training that's out there, the certification is more related to junior level implementation engineering. So I hope we've answered that. If you've got more questions, I will happily ask any of them. So who has the next question? So I see Sanchez down there. I see Christian's there, and thank you so much. I'm looking forward to answering your questions. Cloud J has the next question on the list. So Cloud J, you mentioned labs earlier, doing things like setting up containers and other stuff. Sorry, you really don't know a lot yet. Does your program have opportunities to learn this? Cloud J, excellent question. When we basically take on new students, even those with certified solution architect professionals, after 20 years experience coaching people, we know exactly what we need to do is build a deep foundation of knowledge. We have to start with what technologies make the cloud possible. And we have to teach at an introductory level, what is the network? What is a router? What is a switch? What is a firewall? What is all this? So at the introductory elemental level, the first thing we do is we do a baseline to make sure everybody has the minimum required level of knowledge in order to get there. So first thing is we do that. So we break it down, Cloud J, into introductory modules. Then after we break it down into introductory modules and we explain how everything works, then we do architecture training live, where basically you get to see and the pieces and parts fit together. And we of course do multiple clouds, because one cloud, all clouds is really no big deal when you understand the fundamentals. And then we build and we build and we build. See, one thing that I've learned in martial arts in my career, as a martial artist, and I've been a martial artist for 30 years, you know what I'm an expert of? The basics. Experts are experts at the fundamentals. That's it. We've mastered our fundamentals. The difference between an expert and someone that's not an expert is not only our understanding of the knowledge of the fundamentals, but our experience of how all the pieces and parts work together. So we can become really great and adapt based upon our experience. So let's look at it this way. Bruce Lee, maybe the best martial artist of all time, said, "I fear the man that's practiced 1,000 kicks, one kick 10,000 times. I do not fear the man that's learned practice 10,000 kicks once." Why? Because it's that expertise. So we start by building deep, deep, deep foundational skills. When you have foundational skills and understand how it works, we can ramp really fast. Why can we ramp really fast? Well, I want to show you one thing. Let's say the cloud. Do you know I've been working on the cloud for over 25 years? Do you know back in 1998, the first cloud I worked on was Frame Relay, which was a cloud. And sometime around 2000, I worked on the ATM cloud. Sometime around 2001, I started working on the VPLS cloud. And then after that, it was a cloud after a cloud until we all helped the cloud providers figure out how to design their systems. So when you have good fundamentals, you'll be there. So That's why we focus on the fundamentals. Once you've got a mastery of the basics, you know what you're going to find out? Everything is just a variation of something that's 30 years old. So, for example, a route reflector in BGP. Guess what? Transit gateway in AWS, same problem, solving non-trans routing. Now wait, Cloud Hub, same thing, based on a 30-year-old route reflector. You know what a container is? It's the equivalent of a private VLAN. You know what server virtualization is? It's a VLAN 30 years ago that's instead of virtualizing a switch, virtualizing a server. It's all the same stuff. None of this is new. It's all 30 years old. So when you develop good fundamentals and you understand how things work at the elemental level, I can take you from one cloud to another cloud to 15 minutes, and you'll still understand what it is. So build those fundamentals. If you train with us, Cloud J, we will get you there. If you're training on your own, make sure you work really hard, and you're going to have to read a good 10,000 pages on your own minimum if you're not with us, on networking, on OSPF, on BGP, on NAT, on QoS, on VLANs, on private VLANs, on 802.1x, on NAT, on IBGP, eBGP, OSPF, just to name a few. Then get used to your servers and how to set up server virtualization. So get some reading from VMware. The first stuff I told you can buy free reading on the Cisco page for about 2,000 pages, and it's all free. The next thing I'm telling you is go to VMware. Read all their documentation on server virtualization if you're not with us. Right after that, assuming you're not with us, start reading the Docker and the Kubernetes things on containers. And then if you're not with us, make sure you read all of the Cisco, Checkpoint, Palo Alto, and Fortinet security information about their firewalls and network-based IDS systems. When you're done that, go and read all of Microsoft's documentation on Active Directory. Go to IBM and Dell EMC and learn about storage area networks and their architectures. Then go to F5 and read a few hundred pages on load balancers, how they work. Then go back to F5 and learn about DNS. You've got to learn these things. So realistically speaking, these are the things that I strongly recommend that you do. If you're with us, there's nothing to buy. You can do it all on our servers. But if you're on your own, make sure you purchase a 24-core server, minimum, with 128 gigs of RAM and at least 3 SSD drives and a RAID 0 configuration for speed and performance of your disk, or an NVMe drive. But if you're with us, all this stuff is included. Cloud J, if you have more questions, I would absolutely love to answer them. So Sanchit Singh, CCNA and a little Linux knowledge at the associate level will be enough to join as a prerequisite? Absolutely, that would be totally fine for that. Because Sanchit Singh, understand this. The Cloud Architect Experience Program is a deeply technical program, and it will be great for that. Just understand that the Experience Program does not include the business executive training, the soft skills and communication training. From a technical perspective, it's got a lot of great training. So yes, it would be enough of a prerequisite, but if you did that, you'd be able to be pretty solid technically when you're done. Christian, great content. You're watching my videos and you're amazed with it. Thank you so much. We work really hard on producing our videos. There's not a video that we release that does not have an extensive amount of research. Now look, I've been in this industry for close to 30 years, and I've got my own set of research and conversations I've done with every hiring manager that you can possibly imagine I've met inside of a 30-year career, plus every recruiter I've ever spoken to, and I continue to speak to on a daily basis. So realistically speaking, these are the kind of things that we do to make sure we're always current. And I gotta say, we put all that time, effort into our videos, and then we generally send our videos to my wonderful, wonderful, wonderful video editor, Manuela, who's just had a baby. So if my videos don't look as perfect for the next week or 2 or 3 until she gets back from having this baby, well, that's why. But, you know, we love our video editor. She does a lot of things to help us, and we put a lot of time, effort, and money into making these videos. So thank you. Tyrone, hi Mike, you've been in sales for 15 years. Excellent background. And I'll tell you why. How much time would it take to become a cloud architect? Your career range. So Tyrone, here is what I like about sales. Here are some absolutely critical things for the cloud architect. The first thing for the cloud architect is to develop rapport with the customer. The next critical thing for the cloud architect is being able to connect to that CXO audience, CEO, CFO, CTO. The next thing that's really important is how to present. The next thing that's really important is to do some ROI modeling. These are just some of the many things that are necessary for the job. So, what is a cloud architect, especially since you're coming from sales? It's a cross between a business executive and a technology professional. So if you've got the sales piece, it's there. Now, if you've not been selling $100 million or $1 billion type solutions, you still need a little more executive presence kind of training, and that's kind of the things that we typically tend to do. So we typically use that. So then, realistically speaking, it's about learning the architecture. And with regards to the architecture, what I'm talking about, Tyrone, is how the pieces work and how the pieces fit together. So it's not like an engineer where you're going to be configuring things. It's a knowledge of the end-to-end solution and how all the pieces and parts work together. So when we deal with sales reps, we've got a different process than we deal with everybody else, but we put them through the same program and they're always successful. The sales reps is more about teaching the technical competency and building on what's typically excellent communication skills already. Because typically, to be successful in sales, you've got to have stellar communication skills, presentation skills, emotional intelligence. So that kind of helps us right then and there. So that's something we absolutely love. So sales is good. From there, we need to fill in the technical content, which typically means for someone from sales, we put them in, we teach them the network and the data center. We typically get them through our introductory level certification, which is the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. We view that as the intro level certification to be able to work on the cloud. All those associate certifications, they were once great, but in today's world, they just don't matter unless you've got a lot of experience. So we get you that. Then what we would do for someone with you, because you're sales, is we need to find some area of specialty that you'd like to focus on. It could be security, it could be infrastructure, it could be business analytics. It doesn't matter what it is, but we got to pick you a specialty. When you're coming from a non-tech world to a tech world, we want to go from where's your experience, and where are you spending your time, and then from there we can teach you a skill. You'd be someone that typically speaks with 4 to 6 months is typically how long it takes to transition people. 4 months is easy to get someone a cloud architect job from working in tech. 6 months is typically what it takes to get people from out of tech. Upward, sometimes it takes 8 months to take people from no tech background to being able to have the skills necessary to be a capable and qualified cloud architect. I'm not sure what you're selling. Could you tell me what you're selling? If you're selling tech, it's going to be much easier. So just let me know that, and I can give you more information. The Christian Belamonte question is relatively easy, so I'm going to do that first before I go up to the next things. So, Christian, what we actually use for our students is we actually use Slack. We use Slack, and the reason we actually use Slack is it provides a really, really good communications experience with our students. And by doing this, we speak to our students live over the phone twice per week on our Monday and Friday calls. And we teach live twice per week. I don't believe video on demand is really the perfect solution for education. I think you need to talk to somebody. So in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, on Mondays and Fridays, we have these 3-hour calls. And on these 3-hour calls, what do? We teach live. You guys ask questions live. So that, and then in between calls, we have students do videos on demand. And then when they're doing the videos on demand, what do? They're literally sitting there and they learn things. They then do a homework assignment. They then submit it to us via Slack, and then we move to them back. So Slack and Discord are like Coke and Pepsi, for example, 7-Up and Sprite. They're the two things that are there, but we've chosen Slack. No, we also, that's our preferred communications platform. Zoom meetings twice per week and Slack. Discord is a great group. I've used it in the past. Discord is a little bit more geared towards video games. And Patreon content is more for content where you want people to actually pay for it. We typically have 2 kinds of offerings. We offer what I believe is the absolute best cloud architect training program in the world for pay. And we offer as much free content as we can to the community for free. It's really important to us to do this. We need to give our students competitive advantage, and trust me, our internal students get a huge competitive advantage. You can see the kind of content we put out there for free, and our students obviously get a level of content above that because we have to give them a competitive advantage. But no matter what we do, we are hyper-focused on training the next generation of cloud architects. We are focused on generating the next generation of tech leaders in the network world and the architecture side. Our whole world is how do we improve the cloud architect community, and that's exactly what we love to do. So hope I answered your question, Christian Belamonte. Um, and then Sunder Kirk, Sunder Carrick, and then after that, I see Eric Torres. So wonderful, Eric. So Tyrone, I hope I answered your question. Um, Love to work with you if you desire, or you can follow the plan that I have. I actually have on my channel how to do this on your own. It will be most likely much, much, much cheaper to do it with us than on your own, but whatever's going to work and make you happiest. I'm going to pop our phone number here, so if anybody has any questions, they can actually call us or text us. So the next question is from Eric Torres. And actually, I think I forgot one, so apologies, Eric. It's actually from Sundar Karik. You have a cloud infrastructure interview coming up. Any do's and don'ts? Yes. So, as it turns out, I've got about 15 interviewing videos on my website. I think we even have a playlist for some of them, but not all of them. We have to update the playlist. My associate Chris will put a link to the interview playlist. In that, I tell you exactly what to do and what not to do on your interviews. Having said that, here's the thing on an interview. The first thing you want to do is establish rapport or a relationship as fast as possible. If the person likes you, everything you have to say is better. The next thing you need to do is have a prepared answer for the tell me about yourself. Typically speaking, we ask a tell me about yourself question to see who you are. Then, I strongly recommend you have 3 prepared answers to 3 pieces of technology, and I need you to know them really, really well. Pick 3 things that you're really great at. Then, you must show energy, enthusiasm, and passion. Display excellent communication skills. Display excellent posture. Show gravitas. Speak. Make a point. Pause. Make your next point. Pause. Vary your vocal tone. So don't just say, I've got 10 years experience in tech. Say, I've got 10 years experience in technology, specifically speaking, the network and the data center. My passion, my focus is the cloud. I absolutely love it. I spend 6 hours a day on the cloud, playing with it, experiencing with it just to be better. I'm highly motivated, I'm highly energetic, and I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and I know how to find the answers to things that I don't know too. Get used to that. Why? You gotta show them that you're what they need. People need somebody that can solve problems. Be a problem solver, and you'll get hired. So show them that. Now, here's the next key. If they ask you a question and you do not know the answer, do not bluff or do not lie. 99% of all interviews die when someone bluffs or lies. Do you really think I'm going to ask an interview question to someone where I don't know the answer to? And when someone bluffs or lies, it signals me, it's like a hammer hitting me over the head that says, don't hire this person. You can't trust them. What do employers want? They want someone that can do the job. They want someone that can be trusted, number 2. They want someone that's safe, knows what they know, knows what they don't know. They want energy, enthusiasm. They want someone that's called an energizer, walks in the room and improves everybody's performance. That means emotional intelligence. They need to know that you can work in a team, so make sure you say nothing negative about anyone, anywhere, anytime. And don't say anything negative about your past employer. And they're willing to know that you're willing to go above and beyond. So, have your tell me about yourself prepared. After you're done, tell me yourself that you've had prepared. Have 3 answers prepared for the 3 technical things you know best, and I'm going to tell you why next. Then, make sure you practice this answer. I'm sorry, if you get asked a question you don't know, well, you can't ignore the question, and if lying is going to get you kicked out of the room, even if we'll be polite, what do you do instead? You say, I am sorry, I have not had the opportunity to learn that technology yet, and I need to be truly honest with you on that. But I'm highly motivated, I'm highly energetic, and I'm highly enthusiastic, and I love tech. And I know what I know, and I know what I don't know. And if I was a part of your team, I would learn whatever you needed as fast as possible. But I'm being honest with you, I've not worked on that yet. But do you know what I do know? I know BGP, load balancing, and storage. And I'd love to discuss any of these technologies with you so you can gauge my competency. So you just flipped it around. What happened? First, you proved them that you were honest. Guess what? That automatically changes their perception of you. Then you told them you were energetic, enthusiastic, passionate. Then you told them you were safe, meaning you know what you know what you don't know, and that is critical to employers because outages happen when you don't know your limitations. Then you showed them the motivation and the willingness to go above and beyond and to learn. And then you pointed them to what you knew. So now your next interview questions are most likely going to be where you're at. Do not go on an interview and let them control you. You control the interview. This is your destiny. They're coming in. There's something great about you. That's why they want to bring you in there. So be confident in yourself. Know what you know what you don't know. Show them with love and passion for tech. Show them with energy and enthusiasm. Show them that whatever challenges they have, you will make their lives better. You will reduce their challenges and you will make their organization a better company. You do this, you'll get hired every time and they will pay you substantially more. So show them that you are a solution to their problem. Show them that you're going to make the team better. Show them that you've got the right attitude, the energy, the enthusiasm, passion, and you've got some good knowledge. And whatever you don't know, you can learn. That's not as much of a problem. What is a problem is personality, attitude, energy. Spivak says it, and I agree with him. We don't hire based on skills. We hire based upon attitude. We can always train skills. Well, it's both in our world. We need technical competency, but we also need the right approach. So, thank you. If you've got more questions there, I will happily go into much more depth. I'm told from my YouTube team that I should say, if you're enjoying this video, if you could please leave a like and a comment in the box or subscribe. It'll tell other people what we're doing is important, and then other people, for example, will get to see more of our content. So we do a lot of free work. This afternoon, we're going to do a 4-hour live networking demo. We're going to literally build a network real time. We're going to connect it to the multiple internet service providers, multiple clouds, show you how to prioritize routing, and it's going to be fun. I'm going to get my geek on with my good friend Inram Takor, and we're going to go out there and we're going to build an entire environment. So it should be fun. Come join us. Free training. This would typically be the kind of training that people would spend $300 for a session because it's going to have 3 CCIEs between us with 3 master's degrees talking networking. So please join. It's completely free. And Chris will leave the link to that in there as well. So let me get to the next question. Eric Torres, great question. Hi, Mike, loving the content. Thank you. In my experience, what's a typical day like for a solution architect? Is it heavily travel-based where you meet with clients face-to-face? Well, and Tyrone, I'm going to get back to you next because you've got a good background and I want to talk about that. So, when it comes to, realistically speaking, a typical day for a solution architect, I'm going to give you an example of what it could be because there's a lot of different days that it could be. I've had months as a solution architect where literally all I've done is driven to the customer site because it was a big architecture, and I went there. I've supervised a team of cloud engineers that were doing a proof of concept, bought lunches, and bought dinners. In fact, one year, I literally spent $100,000 on lunches and dinners doing just that, managing a team of really smart engineers where I'd be on site, I'd be speaking to the executive team during the day, I'd be speaking to the engineering team, I'd be working with my team of engineers that were doing the proof of concept, and I did this every day for 6 months. Literally went from my house to the customer site. Then, I got to tell you, there were other weeks and months as an architect where I literally could just be in my house writing documents. Because my manager would say, we need a new architectural framework for healthcare institutions. Go design it, Mike. And, I spent 3 months at home designing it and literally speaking, writing a 200-page architecture document that needed to be professionally edited with professional graphics drawn, where you give them your Visios and the graphics people design them. So I've done that. I've had some days where I've had video conferences all day long. So it's going to depend upon the level that you're at. Once you reach these levels of senior cloud architect, principal cloud architect, distinguished architect, your life is really going to be this. Go to an organization, they have what's called an executive briefing center. For example, you may give a couple of presentations to some CEOs from different customer sites. Then you might fly to a conference where you're going to speak in front of a 5,000 person audience. This is the senior people like me. This is the world that I know. Now, the junior cloud architects, the people that are just getting there, they're probably going to be sitting in their houses or the cloud provider. They're probably going to be doing a lot of video conferences, and they're probably at some point going to go customer facing with regards to an airplane flight. So is it an extremely heavy travel for a cloud architect? Generally speaking, not so much, especially now. What happened is Cisco has come up with some extremely good telepresence type communication and collaboration platforms that changed the world of business. Zoom went from this little tiny player to an incredible communications and collaboration platforms. Whether it's things like Zoom Phone, which is a great messaging app, or Zoom conferencing, Cisco WebEx has done some incredible things. The other providers like Microsoft and Google are also making their own meeting things. Personally, I use Zoom for things. I am totally blown away with the speed and precision that Zoom has created what I consider to be the world's best conferencing platform. Even though I'm from Cisco, I gotta say, I just love the platform that Zoom has created. So I use it every day. So you might be home. So a day could be literally wake up, answer a few emails, get on a video conference with a client, and write a document. That could be a standard day as a solution architect. And another day could be literally customer meetings all day. And the next 3 days could be at home writing documents and just jumping on phone calls. So there's a lot of variation in the day, but what I'll tell you is there's no configuring, there's no coding. You might be on site, you might be presenting via meeting, via remote conference, or you might be in a customer site. You will be asking lots of questions. You will be asking clients questions. So Eric, I wish I could say that every day would just go to the office. I would say at the more junior levels of architectures, meaning like a basic solution architect, they're probably at their desk 2/3 of the time. And 1/3 of the time having video conferences. Senior solution architect, probably going to be traveling a whole lot because they're going to be more client facing, dealing with executives. Principal and distinguished cloud architects, they're going to be traveling all the time because what happens is once you reach that level of knowledge or industry experience, you're one of a few people in the world that can actually do it. And because of that, everybody wants to see you. Once you start writing papers, once you start getting published, the demand for you will be extraordinary. When I wrote the medical grade network, that was the Cisco customer facing document to design systems in healthcare, I literally traveled 200,000 miles on just one airline to present that topic to communities across the world. And, that was on Continental Airlines. But, I was still traveling on Delta. I was still traveling on other airlines. So, that's kind of the information I wanted to give you. So it could be either way. Eric, if you've got more questions, I'd love to answer them. Now, while I'm waiting for more, I'm going to go to Tyrone. You're in new vehicle sales. Okay, well, that's a little different than the kind of sales we have, but it's still sales. So, okay, you've taken a few other courses. Well, that's why we actually created this program. It's something I've done forever that I actually felt completely obligated to produce. And just to let you know, the courses that I saw out there bothered me so much that we decided to do a free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate. The link is in the description below. We decided to do a completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. The link is in the description below. And we actually did a completely free AWS Advanced Networking. Again, the link is in the description below. And if there's enough desire, maybe we'll do a free CCNA training program. I'm speaking to some white people. I can't commit to it yet on whether we have the resources, but we may do that because this networking knowledge is so fundamental. And everybody else that's making advanced networking courses in the industry never worked in networking in their entire lives. And we can't let that stand, so we're probably going to produce more free networking content. And I can tell you one thing, we will have some very extensive free networking demonstrations coming for that reason. So you've done the, you said AWS Fundamentals course like the Cloud Practitioner. Tyrone, we typically recommend that people skip that completely. You're busy with the Red Hat Certified Engineer. Okay, excellent, Tyrone. So what I would typically say, Tyrone, is if you've done the Cloud Practitioner and passed that certification, and you're ready to pass the Red Hat Certified Engineer certification, do not take the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate. Go straight to the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. Tyrone, we recommend everybody skip the AWS Cloud Practitioner, and here's the reason. The Cloud Practitioner is, like any other AWS exam, somewhat challenging. They're very good at making simple things very complicated on exams. That's what they do, and they're great at it. Many other providers do it. They have to make something challenging somewhere along the line. So the way AWS asks questions, they're all hard. So if it takes somebody 2 months to pass the Cloud Practitioner, for example, there's 0 jobs that are available from the Cloud Practitioner. We say that every day that someone's working on something that's not getting them laser focused to their goal is costing them $600. Why is this? You're in sales. The average cloud architect earns $600 a day. A really good cloud architect will earn double that. It's easy for a good cloud architect to earn $1,200 plus per day. Easy. And when you're experienced as an architect, you will have people reaching out to you every day offering you $300,000 a year plus jobs. When you're new to it, the average cloud architect earns $155,900 per day per year, which is $600 per day. So the goal for you, Tyrone, is to get through that as fast as possible. So while I would typically say skip the cloud practitioner and go straight to the associate, if you've already done the cloud practitioner, then that's like the associate, go straight to the professional. Finish that Red Hat certified engineer, and you're going to have a lot of good things there. You'll have 2 professional level certifications. That's going to look good. Then from there, you still need to learn the cloud. So make sure you learn that network in the data center. We've got a program that's designed to transition people from other careers, AWS certified or not, into being cloud architects. We could definitely work with you. But if not, make sure you go learn that network. Make sure you go learn that data center. Make sure you learn all of those elements and be great at it. Combine that with these 2 certifications. Combine that with ROI modeling. When you said you were from sales, I thought maybe you were doing like technology sales. In technology sales, it's really common for those of us that are dealing with a $100 million or a $200 million solution to have to first evaluate the customer's business, evaluate their business goals, evaluate their challenges and pain points. And then we start thinking of workflow. How could we improve what people do in these organizations? How could we promote more customer intimacy? How can we remove costs? How can we inject more revenue through technology, through closer customer contact, or having the technology in a way to make things more business friendly for the customer? That's what we do. So whether it's security, whether it's not, our whole goal is doing things. I have 7 24 plus core servers in my house. This is insane. I'm a little bit of a technology cuckoo. Yes, I'm mostly business executive, but I still am a little part geek because I love tech and that's why I'm in it. So, if you're going to do these things, make sure you've got those technical skills. So initially when I said sales, you've probably done these things. Typically speaking, when you were selling a car, you're not convincing the customer that their weighted average cost of capital for a product and therefore their monthly payment is less than the return on investment capital that you would achieve, because cars tend to be a depreciating asset, where technology also depreciates at a rapid rate, but it provides business value. So we have to show by saving 3% efficiency on your workers by making them 3% more productive, if the fully loaded cost of an average employee equals $200,000 a year, and they've got 150,000 employees, and we can make each employee 1% more productive, what does that actually save the organization? So these are the kind of analyses that we have to do as cloud architects. And those are the kind of business acumen things that need to be there, as well as the technology acumen, because if you don't know the tech, you can't do it. So Tyrone, I think you can easily do it. Now, I laugh when you say 38. I got to tell you, I worked with 60-year-olds and moved them into the cloud. And you know what? My 60-year-olds are awesome. So are my 50-year-olds. Some are my 40-year-olds. You know what? I've got a half a dozen college students too, and they're doing great. Age is just a number. I'm 48. You know what? I had an injury where I couldn't even walk for 3 years or even use my hand. And you know what? If you fight and you work and you hard, no matter what, there's always going to be some way that you can get to your goals. So go for it, Miss Tyrone. Fight for it. Don't let anything stop you. 38 is really, really young. And the reality is, at 38, you're going to be a lot more believable if I'm a 60-year-old CEO than you would be as if you were 22 years old. Now, having said that, 22-year-olds learn at a speed that we don't learn. At 35, 45, 55, we have more wisdom. Both are necessary skill sets. Tyrone, and if you're interested in security, we can definitely help you with that too. Security is, again, really great. I'm not 100% sure exactly what your goals are, so if you tell me more of your goals, that's great, but you mentioned security. You can't really do security unless you understand the network and the data center, because you have to understand what everything is and then how it all works to figure out their vulnerabilities. So after that, we typically like a security cert, like the CCSP, the CISSP, or the CEH, and that's how we build the cloud security architect. So business acumen, knowledge of the network and the data center, knowledge of the systems, and good. Now, the Red Hat Certified Engineer is a fantastic certification. While I love it from an infrastructure perspective, and it's great, and I have a Linux thing for cloud engineers coming out very soon because I love Linux. If you're an architect, it's probably, and you want to do security, it's probably more important for you to get like a CCSP or a CISSP or a CEH as opposed to a, what do you call it, as opposed to a Red Hat one. Hope I answered your question, Tyrone. I want to make sure that you have as much knowledge to be successful in your career as you can. So, Mr. P, you always have some of the most incredible questions. Do I see a dynamic between IoT and cloud security architecture in the next 5 years? I see IoT becoming more popular, more popular, more popular, and more popular, which means more stuff on the cloud. The more sensor data we collect, the more data we store, the more critical security becomes. Anytime we've got to start collecting things and collecting streaming data, somewhere along the line we have to allow entry into our systems. Whether we place them on a DMZ and then we find a secure way to bring them back, but we're dealing with data. So the more stuff, the more information that's being leaked, the more hacking availability. The more hacking availability, the more problems we run into. So, Mr. P, more stuff in tech, then more stuff needed in security. Security needs just rise by the occasion, especially hacking tools are getting better, and GPUs have incredible performance, and at some point GPUs can now be used in brute force attacks, speeding attacks at a much faster rate than previously, especially with regards to breaking encryption algorithms. Tyrone, security was a big thing for me. It was one of those things, and when I began routing and switching, I loved it. When I learned how to secure systems on an end-to-end basis, wow, that just changed everything for me, and I was excited, enthusiastic, and absolutely loved it. So, now Cloud Learner, just out of curiosity, do I have a favorite preferred cloud vendor, and why would you say they're a favorite? Well, Cloud Learner, I want to make this kind of clear. I am customer centric. What do? I figure out what are my customers' goals? What are my customers' pain points? What business challenges are they trying to solve? And then I figure out what technology is best to solve those problems. And if it's AWS because of their fantastic infrastructure, excellent, use them. If it's Azure due to their neutrality, great, use them. If it's a machine learning AI thing where Google's got maybe a 3% strategic advantage, use them. Every one of these clouds is really amazing. AWS does a stellar job, incredible job with the cloud and infrastructure. They're truly amazing as an innovator, and I love working on the AWS cloud. But you know what? Google has some really awesome things too, and I love working in the GCP cloud. And you know what? Azure has some pretty amazing things, and I love that. But guess what? That's not enough. IBM has the OpenStack Ansible cloud, and wow, Red Hat, that is a good service. Run a cloud in an organization's data center, leverage the extreme performance that you can get in a data center over the cloud, connect that cloud to multiple clouds, and even provision your things directly off of your OpenStack Ansible cloud. Wow, these kind of hybrid cloud environments are extraordinary. Love them. Guess what? Nutanix has a much simpler cloud, and it's equally good as the OpenStack Ansible cloud, but it's much simpler to install and maintain. And you know what? That is an amazing cloud too. I love the Nutanix cloud. So work with Nutanix cloud. Work with OpenStack Ansible clouds. Learn the cloud. That's why I have my students build a cloud. What you'll find is the cloud provider, and I've got a video I recorded last week, is a service provider. So let's say I'm an architect building a building. Let's say I need steel because the building's going to be a certain height and I need a certain amount of strength. As an architect, I'm concerned with who makes the strongest steel that meets my needs. And if it's one steel vendor, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to see who meets my needs. And then I'm going to see who gives me a better price. Realistically speaking, I could go with a cable company or I can go with a satellite TV company. Both give me access to paid TV performance. So what would I do in my home? I would say which one gives me access to the channels that I desire at the desired price. That's how I'm going to make my selection. As a cloud architect, realize each one of these cloud providers is awesome and they all have their own strategic advantages over each other. AWS, in my mind, is the main player right now, but there's lots of good cloud providers. And guess what? Dell has a cloud. And Palo Alto has a cloud. Oracle has a cloud. These are all good clouds. So, what I mean by this, figure out which one solves your customer's problem best. Maybe it's using 2 and 3 clouds at the same time. A lot of my designs have that. Maybe it's a standard data center going to the cloud. A lot of my designs have that. Maybe it's a hybrid cloud in the data center, like a private cloud connecting to a public cloud like AWS. That is good. So I don't have a particular favorite per se. I love them all. They're all able to really truly revolutionize the way we communicate and do it better, faster, and cheaper in most cases than the data center. Not all cases. Sometimes you need super low latency, and the data center is the best approach, and do no cloud. So I pick what's in the best interest of my customers. To me, it's all about the customer. Nothing else matters other than delivering a good customer outcome. So I don't have a particular favorite cloud vendor. I love them all, but I pick what's necessary to meet the best needs of my clients. Hope I answered that question for you. Cloud J, what a great question that actually is. When I mean learn the cloud, look, when you look at an AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional course, and basically they're teaching you how S3 is used and what it is, I mean, that's not really learning the cloud. I mean, what that's really doing is like, and it could be, Cloud Bigtable with Google. These are all great cloud functions, and I love them. But when I say learn the cloud, I don't mean learn AWS's names for an EC2 instance. Know what a virtual machine is. And when you know what a virtual machine is, you can get it from Google Compute Engine, you can get it as an Azure VM, or you can get it as an AWS EC2 instance. Know what the technology is. Remove the marketing speak, IaaS, PaaS, cloud space, elastic pace. Get rid of any terms that kind of make it fuzzy in your head, and then learn it, and then remember them later, because it's important to know which services to select. But bring it down to the fundamental elements. So if somebody says, I've got 1,000 servers, and each server has 128 cores and 4 terabytes of DRAM, for example, I'm going to say, what are your utilization? If the utilization is 80%, I'm going to say, wow, move these to the cloud. I'm going to need 1,000 servers with 128 cores and 4 terabytes DRAM. And I'm going to match them up. So when I say learn the cloud, and then Adieta, I'm going to get back to you very soon in a minute. So when I say learn the cloud, I want you to learn all the systems of the cloud. What is a virtual machine? How does a virtual machine work? How do you optimize the performance? What is a container? What is the cloud? Even in the first place, what is the control plane that manages the cloud? What is the data plane that does the storage and the compute? What are all the things that make cloud computing possible? What is this whole networking thing that is used? What is a router? How does a router work? What is the switch? How does it work? What is this concept between peering one organization to another organization? Lessons we can learn from BGP peering, because it's all coming from the same 30-year-old technology. So, these are the kind of things that I'm really talking about. I'm really talking about getting deep, deep, deep with regards to knowing how the systems work. And why is it so essential to know these systems in the network and the data center? Because it's the cloud. When we build the cloud, what do? We build the network. On top of it, we install our servers. On top of that, we add our storage. Then we add our security appliances. Then what do? We install some software called the control plane, which manages it all. And then it's just the same data center and network that's been virtualized. So, you want to be really great at this? Just do the following. Learn the network and the data center, and you'll always know what to do. So, that's what I mean by learning the cloud, Cloud J. If you've got more questions than that, delve deeper. Those of you that are on the call or the session are having a good time, if you can please leave a like or a comment. And if you're here, let me know you're here by typing the words Cloud Architect, if you don't mind. That way I know everybody's awake, alert, and oriented. Idea Gupta, which course should you take if you're a beginner? It's absolutely the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. That is a program that I've basically taken my life's work and all the coaching I've done for 20 years and created an extremely extensive 250-hour plus training program. It's designed to take someone from no background in tech or a tech background and teach them how to do cloud architecture work. And let me tell you, when you learn cloud architecture work, it'll all be the same. So the right program for our organization is going to be the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. Chris from my team will basically do this. He will post a link to that program in about a minute when he hears this, after everybody types Cloud Architect, so I know you're there. And then Chris will post a coupon for 20% off for that program, so we can take you from wherever you're at now and build you that cloud computing career you desire. Then, Christian Bustamante, you're 40, and you've been building experience on a SaaS app for AWS for the last 3 years, and you estimate land on RDS Cloud Formation. What do you recommend in your case? Go for the associate or the pro? Well, I generally have this philosophy. The Cloud Solutions Architect Associate, as a rule, is kind of like an intro to knowing the cloud services. If you've got several years experience working on the cloud, the Certified Solution Architect Associate is possibly okay. If you don't have a lot of experience in the cloud, it's going to be 100% necessary to pass the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional to try and get you hired. The Certified Solution Architect Associate was a very good course. It provided a very good high level of the services. Unfortunately, what happened is what would be an official AWS Certified Solution Architect training, like if you went to AWS for the time, turned into these courses on Udemy and those other small course providers that basically teach you the name of the service and how to configure it, which is, literally speaking, 100% completely irrelevant to doing the job. So not only was it 100% completely irrelevant to doing the job, what happened was these Udemy course providers and these other course providers literally taught the test. So they didn't teach anything related to the career, but they taught you the test. So what happened is anybody buys one of these courses, they buy one of these practice tests, which is basically an exact copy of the real test, which is an exam dump. And now anybody can pass all 12 AWS certifications in about 3 months if they desire, by just buying these courses and training them. Now, when you ask these people questions, unfortunately, nobody truly knows how it works. So I would typically say, if you've got a lot of experience, Christian, you can, in the tech world, meaning the network, the data center, and it sounds like you're designing things on SaaS, you're fine with the Certified Solution Architect Associate. If you do not have a big background in the network and you do not have a big background in the data center, and then I would say make sure at minimum you get the Certified Solution Architect Professional. Why? The questions on these exams are much harder than on the associate, and because of that, it becomes much harder for someone to buy a practice test and memorize or mug up questions and answers and then go pass an exam. So because of this, we typically like the professional. In our experience, that's the minimum level certification necessary to get some type of a decent cloud computing job. Now, it's just the certification. Again, you still need the knowledge, the network, the data center, and all these other things, but a certification to boost a resume to help you get an interview, that's typically what we're looking for. But you've got some experience, you could possibly go either way. But I would definitely, if I was you, get at minimum the Certified Solution Architect Professional. Who else has a question? So, Christian, I have two approaches. What I try and do 99% of the time is we answer questions on our Monday and our Friday live calls. That's when we answer questions. This way we can offer what's really a $20,000 to $25,000 training program for basically $800, which is 1 day's pay. That's our goal. Our goal is to basically change people's lives forever and basically cost as little as necessary to do it. So we do, for example, group coaching on Mondays and Fridays. So because of that, what do you call it? We've got lots of time for people to ask questions. People also ask us questions on our Slack channel throughout the week, and we answer them. Now, Christian, there are times where people come into our program, and in our program, they basically say, I need to spend an hour and a half with you personally on something. So typically what we do is we discount our rates 50% to our external students if they need a private session outside of the group coaching sessions. But, outside of the group coaching sessions, I mean, people have the opportunity to ask live questions twice per week on our team calls. And they can use, and they do use Slack every day throughout the week. So when it comes down to it, do we have to do a lot of one-to-one? No. When do we do a lot of one-to-one? Typically speaking, in the beginning, we typically offer somebody a free 10 to 15 minute one-time call inside the program on an interview as prep. But for example, it's very common for someone to be in the program, have the job interview of their life, and basically use the free prep one, the 15-minute one, and then say, I want to book another one. And we do that, but we cut it down our costs to make it very cheap for our students. So it's a group coaching program with lots of opportunities to ask questions throughout the week, and live forums as well as non-live forums. But realistically speaking, we have to make accommodations for people that do that. So if and when we've got large numbers of people that have interviews, we have a provision and way to deal with that too. So I hope I answered your question there. So Aida, we do not start our course batch-wise, and here's the reason. What we do is based upon the way I learned medicine or martial arts. We do architecture training and soft skills training on Mondays and Fridays live. Architecture work does not change over time. So we intentionally like to mix people, for example, that are a little newer and a little more experienced in the same architecture calls. And that way, what happens is kind of like immersion therapy. So you're in these calls. And I gotta say, in the first week or two, when you're in one of our calls, our big architecture design calls, a lot of people are a little lost. But they listen in the background. The more senior people are doing it, they're picking it up. By week 2 or 3, people are starting to get the architecture piece, and it's amazing. And by weeks, 10 to 12, people are starting to say, Mike, this is getting simple. Typically speaking, by week 14, somebody says, Mike, I'm bored. And I get so happy when they say, Mike, I'm bored with your Monday and Friday lectures. And I say, you're bored? And I said, what did we do in this lecture? We had 100,000 employees, 20,000 remote access employees, 40,000 subnets, 15,000 servers in the architecture, and 6 petabytes of storage. And you're bored. Okay, great. You know where you're at? Now it's time for you to get hired. Let's call one of the recruiters in our network to try and get you hired. So that's kind of how I base it, and that's why we do this. So what we do is live sessions twice per week. And with regards to that, and Mr. P, I see your question, I'll get to it too. So we do our live training twice per week, and in between this live training sessions, people do videos on demands. Now those video on demands are self-paced. So live architecture training, self-paced. And because of this, we don't have to do batches, because the labs you do are in your own time. The work you do is in your own time, and the only thing you do as a group are these really fun Monday and Friday architecture and soft skills training programs. So that's why we're able to do this. We intentionally don't use groups because we want to create an environment. We've created a network for our people where when one of our students graduates, they can bring other people. So no, I don't want to just mix the junior people together. I want to mix everybody together. So my students now that are getting hired from a few weeks ago, or 10, 12 weeks ago, are now in the position to make relationships with my new students and bring them with them if they form tight relationships. So I've got students in every country that you can think of throughout the world, and they're wonderful people and they help each other. So that's why we intentionally do it this way. So we don't use batches. We've got a great success rate with our students, so we don't need to use batches. This is kind of the way we choose to do things for that reason. So Tyrone, you still work an 8 to 5 job. Should you resign or focus on the cloud or do evening training? The problem you have is nighttime is not enough time. So, Tyrone, this is a great question. So, I've been through this environment twice in my life. Now, what I did, initially speaking, was I locked myself in a room for 4 days to pass the CCNA, but that was when I was young and could read 1,000 pages a day. So, if you have a job, Tyrone, and you do not enjoy that job, for example, and you can't see yourself doing it for the rest of your life, sometimes it's worth taking some time off for 2 to 4 months, focus on your new career, and then run like heck towards it. Now, if you told me right now you were working at a tech company, I'd say stay at that tech company and just learn it a little slower. Because the tech company would look really, really great on your resume. But since you're not at a tech company, you have to do what's in your best interest. I don't know your finances. I don't know how much time you can afford to not work. So I can't advise you there, but I can tell you this. For most people, they will earn far more money as a cloud architect than they would as a car sales rep. Maybe double, maybe triple, maybe more than that. And I can also tell you that there is a tremendous amount of career mobility as an architect, because you can start out as a cloud architect. You can start moving into these principal distinguished roles. You can start moving into tech leadership as well. After you do that, you can either move into enterprise architecture roles like I take, which are almost exclusively at the CXO level. We're designing the strategy and transforming organizations through technology, or you can do, so there's lots of places to go. So generally speaking, I typically locked myself in a room for a period of time. And you know what? At a certain point in my career, I did take some time off to go study and build new skills. I will also tell you, when I took time off to study and build new skills, it changed my life, and I did something that I truly dreamed about. So I had the ability to afford doing that, and I had lots of safety nets. So if you can afford not to work for a couple months to build a dream career, go do it. And if you do, make sure you are hyper focused, that you've got a perfect plan, so you know what to do on day 1, day 2, day 3, so you don't execute that plan. Because when you're not working, you want to be working as fast as possible. Average cloud architect earns $600 a day, so build your plan. And if you want us to work with you, we got a really focused plan that could help you. If you want to do it on your own, at least try and take as many of our free trainings as possible, and try and listen to our suggestions on how to get your first cloud architect job webinar, which we'll be doing again tomorrow. I hope I answered your question there, Tyrone. So, Mr. P, is there any value in taking VMware courses or reading document on virtualization and data center concepts? Absolutely. Do you need to get a VMware certification? Absolutely not. Is there a little bit of required reading from VMware sitting on our course? The answer is yes, you just haven't gotten to it yet. So we typically take most of the knowledge and we boil it down to what you need to know as an architect. But, there's a couple of places in this course, you can't see them because Chris is putting them in, where he's got a list of documents that I want certain people to read, a couple of critical documents from Cisco, a couple of critical ones from certain cloud providers, from certain vendors that make DNS, for example, and load balancers, a couple of critical virtualization and container things. So yes, huge, huge, huge benefit in reading these things. Now, do you need 1,000,001 certifications, Mr. P? No. Get the best certifications, and only the best certifications. Get them focused and learn nothing else. You don't want a jack of all trades resume. You don't want a solution architect, DevOps, SysOps resume. That is a disaster. The reason it's a disaster is nobody knows what career you actually want. When you have something that looks like that, what ultimately happens is people don't know where to place you. They see a jack of all trades and they tend to not want to hire you. And not only do they not want to hire you, they pay you less because a jack of all trades gets paid less than a specialist. So, Mr. P, big certifications. Certified Solution Architect Professional. CISSP, CEH, Offensive Security Professional, CCSP. They're your certs for security, for example, and the cloud. Everything else is basically, for example, just child's play by comparison to these things. Go get these things, focus them on the most critical things. Now, do read the documentation. I do want you to know how everything works. Definitely do that. But just realize the real key is the certifications only get you an interview. They don't get you the job. So what gets you the job is when you get that interview, having the knowledge, the emotional intelligence, the enthusiasm, the communication skills, the passion, and the capability to do the job. So we use certifications to get you the experience. And then after you get the experience, we use certifications to get you the interview, and then we teach you how to get the job. So that's how I would say if you trained with us. So if you train on your own, make sure you follow our training modules or recommendations that we make, and you'll still be good. It'll just take a lot longer and probably be a lot more expensive, but you can do it either way. Time is money for us. Every day you're not working is $600. If we can save you 3 months of time, we've saved you $36,000. So build a plan with us. Do it on your own. I just want you to understand what's necessary. Network and the data center. Cloud. The cloud is just the network and the data center. So you got to understand those things, and then you'll know the cloud. Tyrone, what is a good start for me? Well, Here's my thing, Tyrone. I'm an MBA CEO, and I've closed billion-dollar deals, and I've closed medium-sized deals. And what did I learn by doing big deals? What did I learn by financial planning? What do I learn by starting business? The best time to start something is now. As much as that sounds crazy, the sooner you get to your start, the sooner you get to your goal. Now, that doesn't mean if you're exhausted and you didn't sleep last night, you should start this minute. What I mean is the power of now, and there's really a good book with that. If every day you're not working as a cloud architect is costing you $600 a day, and you think about it for 2 weeks, guess what? That's $6,000 of lost earnings. So spend that $6,000 of lost earnings on some training anywhere. I don't care. Mine is $800 with a coupon code. If you're not with us, go buy some training from, say, Global Knowledge. They can get you through the Certified Solutions Architect Associate and Professional, for example, for about $6,000 or $7,000. Why do I say them? Because they are not Udemy, and they may actually teach you something about how it works. You know, we teach people how it works, and people ask us questions. We do not feel video on demand without the ability to ask questions is a super effective way to go, because what happens is you see stuff, you hear stuff, but you really don't know what it means. You got to get in there and ask. So I would say now. I would say you want us to work with you. We can even talk to you. Happily to answer your questions. I'll leave you our number. And if you want to train somewhere else, again, that's okay. But I would say if you want to get started on your career, the power of now. Now, if you need to save some money, by the way, prior to doing this, or planning to take some time off, I get it. But if that's not the case and you're ready, start working on your dreams today. With us, without us, go for your dreams. Don't let anything stop you. Remove every roadblock on the way and conquer it. And then when you get there, you will be so happy and your life will be so much better. So Tyrone, that's my recommendation. Damien DT, you have no experience. Would I recommend AWS or Azure? Well, Damien DT, I'll tell you what. When we train our cloud architects, we train them to work on every single cloud. There's no such thing as a single cloud anymore. That's almost gone away. So hybrid clouds and multi-clouds. If you were only going to get one certification, I would probably get the AWS certification first. And after that, I would either get an Azure or GCP. I see some value in being AWS certified and getting the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam passed. The reason I see that, the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam is more architecture than the others. I also like it because it's the highest paying of the bunch. So what we're trying to do is play with those supply and demand curves, trying to improve your perceived value. And the Microsoft certs currently have the lowest salary of anything in the cloud computing community. The Google ones have the highest, with the AWS offering the most jobs. So AWS would be my first choice purely on the basis of salaries of the recipients and the number of jobs. And Azure probably has the second most jobs, but if you're AWS certified, it's probably more strategic to get GCP certified because that'll add to that higher skill set that's paid more. Or the Azure one is great. I love the Azure cloud. I think it's fantastic. I think you're going to see explosive growth in the Azure cloud because Microsoft's got some exceptionally good ways to do business. They've got a lot of good people that are good at ROI modeling. They have a lot of people that can go to the executives throughout the world and really have that executive to conversation, just like IBM, just like Cisco. So I see Azure is good, but I would start with AWS purely in the position of dominance and market share. More demand equals higher pay. More demand equals more opportunities for jobs. So that's the way I would do it. Mr. Mitra, you've completed a full course on Solution Arc and learned about some basic Linux commands working with 1 year of experience in tech. I see no option for 1 year of experience. So, I got to tell you this. I've gotten people with 0 experience jobs and it's not that challenging. But the certification training, I must say, realistically speaking, and Tyrone, you should come to our call tomorrow, by the way. I'll explain more. Chris and my team will post a link to that call. If you desire, and it's free. So the certification piece is just the name of the service and how to configure it. You must understand that the architect job has nothing related to configuring anything. The architect job is meeting with a client, finding out their business goals, their legal goals, their regulatory requirements or pain points. It's baselining the current systems. What is the performance of those systems? What is the functional equivalent in the cloud? What do I need to do to improve the workflow that the employees do to make them more productive? What do I do to increase sales, for example? What do we need to improve knowledge of what's going on with the customer? How can we aggregate all that data that we collect from the customer, massage that data, and then run an analysis on the data so we can make a better business decision? How can we secure the environment from end to end? What are the firewalls doing? What's the packet flow of the network? All this stuff is architecture. There is absolutely none of that in the AWS Certified Solution Architect training. And because of that, employers will not tolerate that as a minimum. You do not need to have experience. You need to know what to do and be technically competent. I've taken people that are 22 years old. One of my students, a Nigerian student, just went to AWS, and he is amazing. I spoke with him a few days ago. He was with us, fresh out of college, and he had basically with us for about a month. We did 3 practice interviews, and this person is really smart, and he literally, Richard wowed them when he spoke to them because he's really smart and he's really capable. Now, he's doing great there. I've got lots of examples of things like this, so it's not necessarily your experience, it's your competency. Here's the difference. I can interview 10,000 people that have experience. Guess what? Most of them still don't know what to do. But I might interview a 26-year-old that gets to me because they skipped HR, they went straight through a recruiter that directly presented in front of me. I could interview this 26-year-old and I can ask him how the network works. And if they can describe the IGP and how it promotes network layer reachability and the BGP that they're connecting to their ISPs and the BGP they're using over multiple direct connections, and they can tell me about traffic prioritization, and they can tell me about their firewall strategy and their IDS IPS strategy, and they can show me how they're managing traffic and optimizing performance through a combination of load balancers and content delivery networks, and then people can really show me some depth. I'm excited. Now I've got a competent person with no bad habits. Someone that hasn't been doing it, say, the GCP way or the AWS way or the Azure way. And these are all good ways. But Azure does things a certain way on their cloud. GCP does a certain thing on their cloud in AWS. And this is great. They're all idiosyncrasies of every cloud. Every cloud provider, every product in the world, whether it's a Sony camera or a Nikon camera, are all a little bit different, but they're mostly the same. So when you're really, really, really good, and you're really good, you can work on anywhere, anytime. But we love people that don't have bad habits. We love people that can start from scratch if they've got good fundamentals because we can escalate them. So it's not the experience, it's the technical competency. Can you do the job? But after the technical experience, guess what? It's communication skills. You could be the best engineer in the world and nobody can hire you as an architect if you can't get in front of the customer and deliver a presentation. If you can't show the executives at the company how you can show that the value provided by your solution costs more than the project, guess what? Nobody buys your solution. It'll never be built. If you don't know which questions to ask the customer, you're not going to find out what the current systems are. You're never going to be able to design them. So if you want a great cloud architect career, and you can get them, there's lots of them. You can do the job and you can be hired without experience. But if you don't have these skills, when they interview someone, here's what happens. And I can tell you, here's how we can do it as a hiring manager. If you get an interview, no one cares that you didn't have experience. Now what happens on that interview is as follows. If someone does a good job because they were brought in for an interview, they're hired. Hiring managers like me, I'm busy. I have no time to talk to people. I mean, if I've got 30 minutes in a day, it's time for my yoga. I mean, that's my life. I'm on calls all day, every day, as is every hiring manager. So I don't have time to interview people. So if I bring in somebody for an interview, it's because I know they can do the job or believe they can do the job. So we bring people in for an interview, it's their chance. Now, if we ask people questions and they don't know, or they bluff, or they lie, or they don't have the skills, we send them home. And we tell them, sorry, it's because you have lack of experience. We can't say to a person, sorry, you don't have what we want. We say, sorry, you have lack of experience. And it's a nice euphemism to say, sorry, you're not ready yet. So it's not experience. It's competency. And employers need competency. I got my first job as a senior network engineer 25 years ago. I never worked a day in my life. I applied for a network engineer role. They told me I needed to do something better, a senior engineer role, because I had knowledge and competency. I've hired people with zero background in my career, and they turn into great employees. So it's the attitude, it's the presence. It's, can somebody be great at one thing? If they can be great at something, something else. I hired a guy, we'll call him Avi, at MCI WorldCom many, many years ago. When I interviewed him, I said, "What do you know about networking?" And he said, "Honestly, Mike, I know nothing about networking. It's an open house and I'm so happy to meet you." And I said, "If you don't know networking, what is your goal?" He says, "I want to do networking." And I said, "Okay." He said, "I know Microsoft stuff real well." He said, "I'm an MCSE and I know Microsoft." And I said, "Okay, tell me about domain authentication. Tell me about file storage options. Tell me about this." You know what? He knew all of it. And I said, "Tell me about OSPF, BGP." He's like, "What is a Cisco router?" He didn't know, but I said, "You know what? This guy knows Windows so well." And he said to me, he said, "Look, I understand. Pay me half. Just give me a chance." He said, "Hire me at half salary. I will do anything to learn. I'm motivated." And I said, "We're not going to hire you for half salary." I went to my manager, as did my other co-lead on the team. We went to the manager, and we convinced our manager why we needed to hire this guy. We'll call him Avi. Avi was exceptional after 6 months of coaching, and no, we didn't pay him half. We took good care of Avi. Avi is now the CEO of an organization that distributes low-cost computers to developing nations throughout the world. I'm proud and happy that I hired Avi, and I'm proud and happy to call him a friend. So, we as hiring managers, we're people. If we emotionally connect to you, we may hire you. If we like you, we're going to hire you. It's not just the tech. So, and I'm going to answer those two questions that are next. It's, 50% of it is related to your attitude, energy, enthusiasm, emotional intelligence, communication skills. 50% is related to the technical competency. Master both, you'll get hired every single time. Hope I answered your question there. Mr. Mandel, are there any video or websites we can use case studies which expose the problem statement and teaches design and cloud-based system? Well, yeah, Mr. Mandel, or Ms. Amitabha Mandel, we have in our training program twice per week live architectural discussions. In fact, the way we do it is as follows. On these 3-hour calls that we do twice per week, we have, and I'll invite you to a free one next week, a different version of this, the one that we do for the community. We have the students interview me just like they would in real life. See, a case study is basically someone, for example, writing ever the requirements down on a piece of paper for you, giving it all to you. In reality, nobody's going to give you the requirements on paper. You're going to have to go talk to that customer. After you talk to that customer, you're going to have to really get requirements, starting with the business strategy, then the regulatory strategy, then their goals, then their pain points. That's going to give it to you. And then you're going to ask the organization about their systems. My students do this twice per week in live training. So my students in a 16-week program do this at least 32 times. And then we give my students actual video-based case studies. And these case studies might include 20,000 remote locations, hundreds of thousands of employees, thousands upon thousands of servers, low latency computer where a millisecond of downtime will equal $500,000, or environments where a millisecond of downtime reducing the latency can be $500,000 per minute in terms of financial performance. We do it all. We use case studies in this thing that I've worked with for the last 2.5 decades that make people good, competent, qualified architects. That's our world. It's about making architects. So that's what we do. As far as what's on there, I've seen some case studies on the internet. Basically, they were written by people that look like they've never worked in tech in their entire life, but they're teaching courses. They're not related to actual customer environments. The applications aren't realistic. The compute performance of them is not realistic, so we've created our own. Now, on Tuesday next week, my associate Chris just put it here, we have a completely free Cloud Architect Experience webinar. Come join us on this webinar. It's free. You'll interview me. I'll give you business, legal, technical, regulatory requirements. And with the other people on the call, completely free, you will design a cloud architecture on one or more clouds to solve a business problem. So I give people a chance to do that absolutely free on Tuesday. Now realize on Tuesdays when we do this, I'm dealing with the generic community, so I can't go to the level of depth that I would with my students. Remember, my students have special architecture training, so I have to keep it a lot simpler. But come join us on a free Tuesday session, and I think you'll learn more in 3 hours than you probably did by studying your Udemy courses if you've done them in a whole year. And I am inviting you. People tell us they learn more in 3 hours than they have in an entire year of training. So come, it's free. Hope I answered your question there. Hey friend, Salim. Little experience in Linux, I get it. Here's the key and the things to know about Linux. And then network admin. Okay, Ifran, I can now that you're giving me some good information. So you're a network admin. Excellent. I'm struggling at your career. We can solve that. What would I recommend, AWS or Azure? You weren't. So I already told you, Ifran, that for me, it's not AWS or Azure. It's learn the cloud. And I also told you that generally speaking, or maybe I said it to someone else. Apologies if it was not you. And I also said that generally speaking, I recommend AWS first. Why do I recommend AWS first? The reason I recommend AWS first is it's the biggest cloud right now with the most customers, and it's there. Now I recommend AWS first because it has it's the most ubiquitous cloud and has the most opportunity. I recommend GCP second. The reason I recommend GCP second is the GCP certs tend to have the highest salaries in the industry, and they're more focused on architecture than any of the others. So I typically start with AWS, then I typically go to GCP. Why do I go to GCP? There's moderate demand for this, and the supply is really low because it's a much harder exam. It's an architecture exam. So if you're an architect, it's going to be a lot easier, but if you're new to tech, it's going to be a lot harder. Because of this, here's what happens. You get paid a lot more because of the supply and demand curve. And we're always looking at the economic factors. So first for us would be AWS, then after that it would be GCP. Now we love Azure. Azure is the incredible cloud. We absolutely love it and have wonderful things to say about it. But statistically speaking, Azure people have the lowest salary of the people in the cloud computing community. So we use Azure certs last. So I hope I answered your question there. So what I recommend, if you're a network admin, what's your background? Are you just configuring things, basically like interface GE0/0, IP address, no shut? Is that the kind of things you're doing as a network admin? Or are you designing BGP architectures? For example, when you've got multiple connections to an ISP, are you involved in saying, well, maybe I'll prepend this AS to make it look like an uglier path, or change the weight to make something more preferable, or change the local preference on something. If you're used to the architecture and design before you configure them, great. If you are not used to designing networks, I recommend getting good at it, meaning they used to have something like a Cisco Certified Design Professional certification. It was one of my first 20 some years ago before I was a CCIE. That's kind of one of those things that I would strongly recommend. Being 40 is great. That means you've got experience. That's terrific. It's not a problem. But I would typically say that's where I look at the world certification wise. But on the network wise, I don't know what you've actually done. So do you have any networking certification? If so, that would make you a much better and easier prepared for something like a cloud infrastructure architect, like if you had a CCNP, for example. So if you tell me a little bit more about your background, I can recommend some better alternatives for you. So Alexandra Persak, thank you so much. You've learned more in a few weeks with Mike than online training has taught you. This is a book. Here's how here's how to open a book, but didn't actually tell me the purpose or the bigger picture of the book. Yes, thank you. Realistically speaking, having you a book that's full of content that does not show you what to do with it or what it all means, in my mind, is kind of like, what's the point? If you have a phone and you can't dial it because you don't know how to use it, what's the point? Having a course that tells you the name of the service and how to configure it, but not how to design it, when you're an architect and your whole job is design, doesn't seem relevant to me. But then again, I've been an architect for a long time. But also, tomorrow we will have a live stream, and we do it on Zoom. And we also are going to simulcast it to YouTube. And it's all about how to get your first cloud architect job. So we do this We want people to know the steps. We were doing it privately on Zoom, but we've also started simulcasting to YouTube. Guess what? We're going to be doing a lot more simulcasting things to provide much, much, much more free training. In fact, I bought, cost as much as a car, new Sony cinematography cameras, these really nice size lenses for these cameras, specialty microphones, specialty audio mixers, specialty video encoders, and we're going to be coming at you and providing so much more training opportunities for your career. If that sounds fun, please say more free training and pop that in the chat box. And then I'm going to go back and answer some more questions. So, Arietta, I have no prerequisites for the course. Welcome. There's certifications that you do. Every one of my students passes the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional while they're in their training program. And every one of my students gets deep, networking and security knowledge. My students typically graduate with CCNP level knowledge, CISSP level security knowledge, as well as deep cloud architecture knowledge. The Johnson said, if you want me to start coming broadcasting live, and you want me to start bringing industry experts, leaders from cloud companies, leaders from networking companies, leaders from the industry, people that have shaped this world, people like me that have done billion-dollar-plus deals. If you want me to get people like this and technology industry leaders, type more free training and we'll get it for you. Done some incredibly big investments in the last week to try and provide more free training for the community. Every time I see someone that says, we're making an advanced networking course, but no, I've never worked in networking, it makes me feel compelled to provide more free training out there for you guys. We only should train what we're good at. I've been an architect for 30 years. I teach architecture. That's it. I teach architecture and leadership because that's what I know. And I don't teach things that I don't know. Now, might you see some really good network architect and cloud network architect things coming from us? Sure. Why? Because it's what I know. Now, if there's other things, for example, people from other careers, might I bring in some really good DevOps people to teach DevOps engineering? Might be happening, but I will not teach a course that I don't have at least 25 years of experience on. You, as students, demand the best. So even at free, we will never provide anything that we don't have knowledge or experience on. Would I do a real-world hands-on tutorial? This afternoon, we are going to be building a network from scratch. Basically what we've done is I've had my associate Imran, who I have the biggest respect for, so much so that you're going to see some amazing things in the networking world coming from him and I in the next few months. Super excited to be working with Imran on some things. He's got 2 CCIEs. He's finishing his 3rd CCIE. He's got 25 years experience. I've got 25 years of experience. And here's what we're going to do. Today, this afternoon, we are going to design a network for an organization. We're going to do the IP addressing plan. We're going to configure the routing for our internal network. Then we will connect our internal network to 2 different internet service providers. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to show you the BGP routing and show you how you make a path decision. Then we are going to set up a mock cloud. We're going to create 2 direct connections to the mock cloud. And you know what? After that, we're going to show you the BGP policy, and we're going to do some traffic engineering. We're going to show you the routing tables real live. We're going to build this real live. Real time, we're going to be using Cisco routers and simulators to do this, and it is going to be fun. We will show you how to connect to a second cloud while we're doing it through BGP. And we're going to do this today, free, 4 hours from 1 to 5. So come, enjoy the free training. So that's what I'd like to say. Regarding us, Mr. Ariad, we definitely don't have prerequisites. We start everyone from the basics. We know that what it takes to really be good at this is to have deep foundational knowledge. So no matter where you come from, we're going to get you there. Mr. P, is there an interview template? Yes, you're one of our students, and there is an interview template with approximately 150 questions that you would use for the client intake. Mr. P, you can see that in our internal training portal. And if you need any help finding that, you can reach out to @ChrisJohnson on Slack, and he will take care of it. Tyrone, actually, I've got another student, Tyrone, in South Africa. Really great guy, Tyrone, in South Africa. He's been out a little bit with some family things, but I'm hoping that he's coming back, or maybe that's even you, because I miss Tyrone, who's in South Africa. He messaged me before. He's having a great time, but he had to take care of some family matters, to please keep him in mind. So if that's you, awesome. If not, yes. The reason we pick the times that we pick for our calls is as follows. We have most of our students spread either in the US, the UK, or Europe, or a tremendous amount in Africa. So because of that, we find these time zones work for the majority of our people. We also have a lot of people in India. It's not the most convenient time zone. I wish there was better time zones between the US and India and our students in Asia, but we all have a great time together. So we'll give you a lot more of the stuff. Tyrone, it's not you. Well, if you want to be one of our students too, we'd love to work with you. Our other Tyrone friend in South Africa is a really, really, really good guy, and he's learned so much. What time this afternoon, Ifran? It's going to be from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. U.S. time, which means it's going to be 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. UK time. So you can calculate that based upon which country or which time zone you're in. So I also saw there was a question from Ifran. So I want to answer that. You've done training for the CCNP as well, but it's not kind, so you forgot it because you never had the chance to use it. So, Ifran, you've got to have that CCNP level, level knowledge for these kind of jobs. I almost say you almost need CCIE level background in some things and CCNA level backgrounds in others. So, with the BGP, the tuning, the policy, the manipulation, you need some really strong like CCIE level skills. Now, some other things like configuring these things on the cloud are basically silly easy. So realistically, not that you would necessarily do that as an architect anyway, but the designing these systems on the cloud. The time zone of 1 to 5 is Eastern Daylight Time. So that means 6 p.m. UK time or 5 p.m. GMT. All the way to 11 p.m. UK time to 10 p.m. GMT, since UK time and daylight savings times are a little off right now. So let's make sure I didn't miss any other questions, because I want to make sure we've got all of your questions everywhere, anytime. So, Mr. P, we got you covered with your interview template. Tyrone, like I said, we're going to do a hands-on tutorial someday. Realize, Tyrone, most of what we do is architecture work, and architecture is design work, not configuring. So we typically do much more design training than we do configuration training, because that's not the work that a cloud architect does. But, so that's where we really focus our time, is on design. But we will build stuff periodically, and the reason we build stuff with you periodically is both so you learn how to configure it, but also when we build stuff and we use the traditional technologies, here's what we get to do. We get to go to the fundamental levels. We get to really show you what's going on in those routing tables. We get to show you what's going on switching wise, and all these kind of things really do. So when we build things for specialty clients, we're doing it for a particular reason. So that's why we do what we do, and that's why we're predominantly design phase. But welcome. I completely, I'm thankful for what you're saying, is when you've got a great teacher, the time zones become negligible. You know what? The first person to say that to me was one of my students, Divya, who was wonderful. And she says to me, I don't care if I'm up in the middle of the night. I'm so grateful to be part of a training program. What have I watched from Divya over the last 6-8 weeks? She's gone from configuring things to setting up server virtualization to literally speaking, dealing with some IAM projects for us, in addition to all the things she's learning. And she has learned so much so fast, and I'm proud of her. Now, I have a tremendous number of students in India and Asia that are also staying up to watch it. And the rest of them, my students, do in the middle of the night, what they do is when they take our training courses, they maybe attend the first hour of the class, and then they watch the replay afterwards when they wake up in the morning. So thank you so much for your kind words. We absolutely love working with the international community, where no matter where you're at. I have personally worked in more countries than I can even describe. There were weeks where I'd start my weeks when I worked at Cisco, and the typical morning for me would be leave my house at like 5 o'clock in the morning, go to California, do an executive briefing to 2 or 3 organizations, then fly to London that evening, and then give a presentation in London the next morning, then go to continental Europe and give some presentations, then go to the Middle East. That was the kind of thing. Once I became more that enterprise architect level where I was just advising people all over the world. The good news about the cloud is it's kind of virtual, it's kind of online. There's much, much less travel. You're not traveling so much to supervise builds. You're now traveling just to get in front of customers to have that, intimate customer experience. What is it you need, Mr. Customer? Establish that rapport, and you can do so much of it, so much more remote. And let me tell you, when it's remote, what an experience it is, because you're not traveling as much, which means you're not waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You're not jet lagged. It's pretty cool. So time zones are there. One of the things I advise my time zones is quite frequently get used to time zones. If you're a cloud architect, there's no such thing as your own time zone anymore. Mr. P. Generally speaking, it's dependent upon your world. I find with the cloud, it is extremely hard to get an entry-level cloud position. And here's the reason why. And then Mark Lawrence, I will get to your question in a second. So what happens in the old world? I want you to understand what we really needed. Let's say, for example, I designed a network. I would need to have some people rack the servers, rack the routers, rack the switches, run the cables from point A to point B, and then I would configure them. These are your entry-level jobs. But what happens on the cloud? There is nothing to physically plug in. There's nothing to physically cable because it's been virtualized. So what you're finding is there are no entry-level jobs on the cloud. And the reason companies are going to the cloud, I hate to say this because this really depresses me, which is why, there's the trepidation I have about the cloud. Their organizations are using this because they don't need those entry-level people. They don't have to deal with salaries and benefits for half of their technology professionals. There is no such thing as entry-level. So, because of that, you've got to be better and better and better. In another world, you can get an entry-level position, but there is no more entry-level because the cloud got rid of all these entry-level positions by virtualizing it all. And organizations are moving to the cloud. Why? The cloud is agile, but the people needed to manage the cloud are cheaper. You don't need 10 CCIEs on your team. You might need one. You don't need 50 more admins on your team. You can get away with 5, and you can even script this stuff. So with the cloud, it's so much easier. All the work is done by the cloud provider. Learning the cloud seems daunting, but let me tell you, if you learn the network and the data center for real, you're going to learn that the cloud is silly easy. You're going to take somebody like me or Imran that's been building this stuff for 30 years, and then it's like Cloud Hub. We look at it and say, okay, route reflector, 30 seconds. I don't need to know any more about this. Transit gateway. Oh, wow. Cloud Hub, but for direct connections, not just VPNs. Done. So when you get it and you truly know it in depth, it's all simple, simple, simple stuff. But there really is no types of basic jobs in today's world, and because of that, that's why we typically recommend preparing for something good. Thank you, Ifran. I actually have a lot of wonderful students in Pakistan and India and Bangladesh. I've got several Bengali people. I've got multiple sets of people in Pakistan and India. A lot of them. And let me tell you, I've spent half of my life working in these kind of places with wonderful people from these nations. Great technology professionals. And, it takes the whole world to put these pieces together. And because of that, we're thrilled to have that audience. I'm thrilled that, I can communicate to people in all these different countries throughout the week. It's everything to me. So thank you so much. So, my friend, thank you. I have another live stream session going on at 1 p.m. If anybody needs a call from me between now and then, we can actually put down our, I'm going to drop my number down. I've seen that a lot of people have text messaged me already on this call. So I'm going to go return phone calls from the people that have chosen to call me. Chris has put a link to our training as well as a coupon code. It's been an honor and a privilege to spend the morning with you. I'm going to come back next Wednesday and do the same thing. So if you've got any questions, don't worry. We'll answer them for free. Tomorrow we have the How to Get Your First Tech Job, How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job seminar. And I highly recommend it. And today, guess what? we are going to have networking fun. So if you're having fun and you want to learn some networking, type Cloud Architect in the chat window. And I hope to see you here back in an hour and a half. Thank you, everyone. It's been an honor to see you this morning. Let me know. Z, don't worry. We're going to have a big training session this afternoon. We're excited to work with you. And we'll do it again next week. And Z, feel free tomorrow to join our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. The link is in the description below. Plus, I'm pretty sure that Chris posted it several times throughout the thing. Z, we'll see you. Have a wonderful time. And we will get to talk to you this afternoon. Networking time. Bye, everybody. Take care.